Red and blue are two colors that really go well together. The Pepsi logo, Superman's costume, M&Ms, well, everywhere except Runeterra. Because when it comes to Vi and Jinx, I don't think I've ever seen red and blue hate each other so much. Yep, that's right. It's time to dive into the full story of Arcane. Without further ado, the very first episode kicks off with a gut punch. Two little sisters named Violet and Powder are wandering through the aftermath of a brutal battle on the Bridge of Progress, where their parents are among the dead. Powder is singing a song to make up for the mood there, but it's no use. The sisters are all alone. Just then, a guy named Vander, who's the leader of the Undercity Revolution, finds them and takes them in. As he carries them away, Violet takes one last look at her destroyed home, and the Piltover enforcers who destroyed it. But there aren't any tears in her eyes. There's fire. One time skip later, and the girls, along with their adoptive brothers Milo and Clagger, are on a rooftop heist in Piltover.
Couldn't we have at least just walked there?
Powder hesitates on a jump, but Vi encourages her to keep going. After all, Vi said that she's ready. One leap of faith later, they break into a fancy penthouse, which happens to be Jace's study, though they don't really know it yet, and start grabbing everything that they can get their hands on. This is when Powder stumbles upon strange glowing stones. They're called hex crystals, and they're going to be very important very soon. Anyway, they hear somebody banging on the door and make a break for it. But Powder accidentally drops one of the hex crystals, which causes a massive explosion, blowing out part of the building. The group barely escapes, but they're immediately chased by Piltover enforcers. After an intense getaway through a garbage chute, which is actually pretty disgusting, the gang thinks that they're home free.
I don't know. I didn't do anything.
Unfortunately, they run into Deckard, a local thug who wants them to hand over their loot. Vi obviously doesn't take kindly to this and smacks Deckard across the face with their loot. Ooh. This leads to a big fight between Vu, Clagger, Milo, and Deckard and his buddies, which they end up winning, sending Deckard packing with his tail between his legs. Unfortunately, Vi gave Powder the loot during the fight, and she's being chased down by one of Deckard's guys. She tries throwing a homemade grenade at him, but when that fails, she panics and ends up tossing the stolen bag into the water to escape. When the kids regroup, Milo blames Powder for losing everything, and really lays into her, calling her a jinx. The loss really stings, but they all decide to head back home to the Undercity. The gang makes it back home, and we get a good look at the Zon, a dark, decrepit place packed to the brim with some seriously questionable characters. Meanwhile, Vander's tending bar at The Last Drop, keeping the peace as usual. But when some seriously shady guys start threatening a patron, Vander steps in and handles it like the badass that he is. Then the kids show up, and Vi tries to hide the mess they caused in Piltover. But Vander is no fool. He knows all about it. He gives Vi a serious lecture about staying out of Piltover and the responsibility of leading her siblings. Vi wants to fight for the Zon, but Vander warns her that it's not worth the risk. He tells her that violence doesn't solve problems, it just causes more. Powder, who's feeling pretty down, discovers she accidentally kept some of those hex crystals. She overhears Milo mocking her again, but doesn't stick around long enough to hear Vi defending her and ripping into Milo.
Powder's my problem, okay? Your problem is never knowing when to shut up.
Feeling worthless, Powder isolates herself from her siblings. I'm sure that this isolation won't have devastating consequences in the near future. Meanwhile, Vander heads to Benzo's shop to get answers from Echo, the informant who tipped Vi off about the penthouse. Echo tells Clagger some guy who came to the shop gave him the tip. While Echo is telling him this, two Piltover enforcers, Grayson and Marcus, show up to ask some questions about the explosion. Marcus gets really mad at Vander, but Grayson plays it cool, revealing she is a secret arrangement with Vander to keep the Undercityites out of Piltover, in exchange for Piltover leaving them alone. She warns him that the explosion was pretty serious. The building belongs to the Kiramans. This will make sense later, and if Vander doesn't give her someone to blame, things could get ugly. Vander refuses to give up one of her own, but keeps Grayson's communication capsule just in case. Vi finds Powder skulking and tries to cheer her up by taking her on a walk and pointing out all the times the siblings have failed, like Milo's failed paint job or her old stuffed bunny that got stuck on a power line.
His ass made that splotch.
She tells Powder that it's okay to mess up. She's just a kid, and they're in this together. Powder then tells Vi she kept some hex crystals, and Vi promises that it'll be their secret. Vi then tells Powder that Milo is wrong about her. She's stronger than she knows, and someday, this city is gonna respect them. Back in the shadows, Deckard reports to Silco, the big bad of the show, who's working on something terrifying with a creepy scientist named Singed. Silco is furious that Deckard messed up, but changes his tune when Deckard tells him Vander's kids caused the explosion. Silco tells Singed they're running out of time, and Singed shows him his new creation, Shimmer, a purple serum that turns a regular rat into a monstrous killing machine. Silco hints he's planning to test it on Deckard next, and we have ourselves a setup. The second episode, Some Mysteries Are Better Left Unsolved, starts in the middle of the first one, but from a different character's perspective. This time, we're following a guy named Jace, who owns the penthouse Vi and her siblings were robbing from. It also turns out that he's the guy that came buying stuff from Benzo's, and that's how Echo got the tip. He's about to go back inside, only for Powder's crystal explosion to knock Jace against the wall, knocking him out and triggering a flashback. In that flashback, we see a young Jace and his mom struggling through a blizzard. His mom collapses, and things look bleak until a mysterious mage appears. This mage uses magic to teleport them to safety, and heals his mom using a glowing rock before dropping the rock in Jace's hands. This was the moment that sparked Jace's lifelong obsession with magic. In the present, the enforcers, led by Grayson, investigate the wreckage of Jace's study. Victor, a curious assistant from the academy, tags along. When they discover Jace's illegal equipment and Victor jokes about including himself as contraband, Jace is arrested. Imagine your apartment gets blown to smithereens and the cops arrest you. Talk about a rough day. While Jace is wondering what went wrong in his cell, Heimerdinger, a wise little Yordle professor, asks Jace what in the world he was up to.
No great science should ever put lives in danger.
That's when Jace tells him that he's made an incredible discovery, a way to harness magic through science. Heimerdinger is not a fan of the idea, saying the Arcane is dangerous, and tells him to keep quiet about his experiments. But you can tell that Jace isn't the type to just let it go. He's 24 years old after all, and no guy in his 20s gives up on his dreams that easy. Over in the Undercity, Vi and her crew are blowing off steam at an arcade. Vi is boxing, and Powder kicks Milo's ass at a shooting game, which is super embarrassing for him. But their fun is interrupted when Piltover enforcers storm in and start searching. Claggor creates a distraction for them to get away, but they get stuck between enforcers in an alley. That's when Echo drops a ladder and helps them escape. In Piltover, Mel is scheming to climb the social ladder. She chats with Alora about Piltover's future and asks about Jace's upcoming trial. When she finds out Heimerdinger likes the kid, she deduces he must be pretty smart and decides to influence his trial to get him on her side. Meanwhile, the wealthy Kiraman family decide to support Jace, under pressure from their daughter Caitlin, who's Jace's friend and pupil. Meanwhile, back at the last drop, everybody wants to fight back against Piltover and their forces, but Vander tries to keep things calm, even though tensions are rising. He reminds everybody what happens when the Undercity tries to fight Piltover. It's the same violence that caused Vi and Powder their parents, but they call Vander weak.
We kicked the enforcers' butts with just the four of us. Imagine what the whole of the lanes could do.
It looks like his kids agree. This is when Echo tells the siblings about Vander's deal with the enforcers to keep Zahn safe. Back at Jace's trial, Mel bribes another counselor to tip the scales in Jace's favor. At the trial, Jace tries to stay quiet, following Heimerdinger's advice, but when they dismiss his work as foolish, he snaps and defends himself, explaining his dream of combining magic and science. He's about to go on a rant about why it's a great idea, but Heimerdinger stops him and says that magic in the wrong hands can be devastating, and that they simply cannot take the risk. This is when Jace's mom steps in and begs for her son to be spared. The council is split, but thanks to Mel's interference, Jace manages to avoid banishment and is just expelled from the academy instead. Jace is now at his lowest point. His mom tries to comfort him, but it's no use. His dream was stolen away, and he's devastated. He goes to see Caitlin, and she says her dad said that they can't be friends anymore. Jace is a misfit after all. Jace tries apologizing to the Kiramans, but Caitlin's mom is having none of it. So he goes up on a ledge, ready to give up. But Victor shows up just in time, encouraging him to keep going.
Am I interrupting?
Victor believes in Jace's vision and hands back his research notes, showing he's willing to defy the rules for something that he sees as revolutionary. As he puts it, when you want to change the world, don't ask for permission. Silco, meanwhile, experiments with the serum from the last episode on Deckard. Deckard doesn't want to do it at first, but after some manipulation by Silco, he downs the potion, and we see and hear him scream as he turns into a hideous monstrosity. Meanwhile, Marcus, the enforcer that was with Grayson in the last episode, gets a tip from Silco about who caused the explosion: Vi and her crew. The enforcers head to the last drop to track them down. Vander gets the kids hidden just in time, using one of Powder's gadgets as a warning. It's a close call, and Powder almost slips and gets caught. When the enforcers don't find the kids, Marcus basically tells everybody that they're all the scum of the earth, that he's going to send them to jail. Anyway, after the enforcers leave, Vi confronts Vander, frustrated that he refuses to fight back against Piltover. Vander takes her to the bridge and tells her the truth. He led the uprising that got her parents killed. He knows firsthand that nobody wins in war. Back in the Zahn, rumors of rebellion are spreading. Powder shows Vi the new bombs that she's made to fight the enforcers, and Vi tells her what makes her different makes her strong. Meanwhile, Grayson confronts Marcus, upset that his actions at the last drop could jeopardize her delicate argument with Vander. Vander, meanwhile, sends her a message, making it clear he's still trying to hold the fragile peace together. As the episode wraps up, Vander pours Powder a drink at the bar, trying to keep their family together as the enforcers open the door. The third episode, The Base Violence Necessary for Change, opens with Silco narrating a haunting flashback. A young Silco is being drowned in murky water. He says that surviving something like that changes you forever, and we get a glimpse of an old friend, though all we see is an arm and a shadow. Turns out, that friend that was drowning him was Vander, and as you're going to see, their lore is crazy. In the present, Vi is waiting in Benzo's basement. She sent a message to Sheriff Grayson, planning to turn herself in to protect her family. Vander shows up before Grayson can, locking Vi in the basement to stop her from sacrificing herself. He tells her he's proud of her, but insists she stay and protect their family. When Grayson and Marcus arrive, Vander lets himself be arrested in her place.
You'll oblige a doomed man one last smoke.
But things go south fast. Deckard, juiced up on Shimmer, that's the name of the monster serum, shows up and brutally kills Grayson and Benzo. Silco then has Vander knocked out and kidnaps him, telling Marcus their deal has changed. As Vi watches the whole thing helplessly. Oh boy. On the less depressing side of things, in Piltover, Jace and Victor make a breakthrough with the crystals, but it's all on paper. They need proof to convince the council. Victor, desperate to make Jace's dream and his own a reality, sneaks them into Heimerdinger's lab, using his assistant's key. Mel catches them, but Jace persuades her to let them try. After a tense experiment, they stabilize the crystal, creating a floating display of magic meets science. Heimerdinger bursts in with guards just as they succeed. He's beyond impressed, but still thinks messing with magic is way too dangerous. Mel, on the other hand, declares it the beginning of a new era, Hex Tech. Back in the Undercity, and Echo walks into the basement that Vi is in. They hug and cry as Echo tells her that he saw everything. Watching your father figure die in front of you is just next-level trauma. At Silco's Shimmer factory, Silco tries to convince Vander to join him. He wants to use Shimmer to scare Piltover into respecting the Zon and finally unite the Undercity as one nation. He reminds Vander that they once shared this dream when they were younger, but Vander refuses. He then reminds Vander about how he drowned him, and they talk about Silco's plan. But Vander's not willing to sacrifice the innocent people of the lanes for power.
You die for the cause, but you won't fight for one.
Meanwhile, Vi tells Milo, Clagger, and Powder what happened. She decides to rescue Vander, taking Vander's weapons, and her brothers join in too. Powder begs to join, but Vi refuses, afraid of losing her. She gives Powder a flare, telling her to use it if things go wrong and promises to come back. Remember this. It'll be important. Anyway, now fully heartbroken, Powder has a full-on mental breakdown, but then remembers the hex crystals and realizes that she can use them to help. Meanwhile, the rescue mission for Vander starts off very well. Vi, Milo, and Clagger sneak into the factory, find Vander, and start freeing him. But it's a trap, and Silco and his men close in. While Milo works to unchain Vander and Clagger looks for an escape route, Vi fights Silco's goons using her old man's gauntlets and knocking one of them flat on his ass before fighting the rest. Yeah, this is a really cool moment. But things take a turn when Silco injects Deckard with more Shimmer, turning him into a massive monster. Vi struggles to fight him off, locking herself behind a door as he charges at her. Powder, watching from outside, launches her monkey bomb stuffed with crystals, hoping to save the day. Just as Milo sets Vander free and Clagger has cleared a path for their escape, the bomb goes off. The bomb works well. Too well, actually. A massive explosion tears through the factory, killing Milo and Clagger instantly, as well as Singed. As the explosion goes off, Grayson watches from a distance, wondering what he's done. Vi is trapped under debris, and Vander, despite his injuries, fights off Deckard to protect her. But Silco, being the despicable piece of garbage that he is, backstabs Vander and throws him off the bridge.
I knew you still had it in you.
Looks like he's done for. But in a last-ditch effort, Vander takes Shimmer himself. Transformed into a monster, he defeats Deckard, saves Vi from another explosion, and carries her outside. But the Shimmer takes its toll, and Vander dies in her arms, as Vi screams in pain, crouched over her father's body. No. This is when Powder runs up to Vi, super happy that her bomb finally worked, only to be met with Vi's rage. Realizing the bomb caused the disaster that got her father and brothers killed, Vi slaps Powder and screams that she told her to stay out of it. In her grief, Vi calls her a jinx, breaking Powder's heart. Vi storms off, with Powder crying her eyes out, begging her not to go. This is when Silco shows up, knife in hand. Vi starts to turn back for her sister, but Marcus grabs her, drugging her unconscious, saying Silco will kill her if he finds her. Left alone, Powder throws herself at Silco, wailing that Vi abandoned her. Silco, surprisingly tender, hugs her and tells her that it's okay. In her despair, Powder finds comfort in him. saying Vi left her and that she's not her sister anymore, and the bond between them is born. Happy Progress Day kicks off with Heimerdinger reminiscing about his old friend, Stanwyck Paddedly, as he and Jace admire Stanwyck's statue. Apparently, Stanwyck gave up his own ambitions to support his students' work, helping shape Piltover's future. Heimerdinger then shares some big news. The council wants Jace to give the keynote speech on Progress Day instead of Heimerdinger, a massive celebration marking Piltover's 200th anniversary. He says he deserves it because of how his technology has revolutionized the city. And it's clear we've been subjected to another time skip. No pressure, right? Now the city is buzzing with energy. Piltover has leveled up in a big way since the events of Act 1 thanks to Jace and Victor's breakthroughs in Hextech. Now there are robots, airships, and even Hexgates, giant teleporters that have made Piltover the heart of global trade. Business is booming and Piltover is thriving. We also catch up with Caitlin, who's joined the Piltover Police Department as an enforcer. She banters with Jace about her choice, and it's clear her mom isn't thrilled with her career path. Mrs. Karaman wanted Caitlin to have a more respectable career, but Caitlin's tired of being sheltered. She wants to see the real world. Meanwhile, a shady ship arrives in the Undercity loaded with shimmer, but before it can go far, a mysterious group called the Firelights ambushes it. These flying mass rebels immobilize the ship's crew and start exploring the cargo hold, only to trigger a trap. The hatch seals shut with a doodle of a grinning monkey on it, and boom, an explosion. From the smoke, Powder appears, clearly behind the whole thing. Oh, and she's not going by Powder anymore. Her name is Jinx. She takes out the Firelights with her insane style of combat, but things get messy when she rips off one of their masks, revealing a girl with pink hair that reminds her of Vi. Memories of being abandoned flood her mind, and she loses it. Powder kills the girl, then starts shooting wildly, hitting both allies and enemies in a total meltdown. Safe to say what happened between her and Vi really did a number on her. Back in Piltover, Jace and Victor are stoked to show Heimerdinger their latest innovation, a completely stabilized Hextech gemstone. It's powerful, safe, and it could change the world. They even demo a couple of new inventions powered by the gemstone, the Atlas Gauntlets, which gives superhuman strength, and the Hex Claw, a laser-equipped mechanical arm. Jace and Victor are eager to share their tech with the world at Progress Day, convinced that it could improve countless lives. But Heimerdinger pumps the brakes on the project, saying they need a decade or more of research. He's impressed by their progress, but is worried about the potential for misuse. Such a powerful energy source in the wrong hands could cause disaster. Despite their enthusiasm, Heimerdinger advises against presenting it to the public just yet. Meanwhile, Caitlin investigates the ship where the showdown between Silco's crew and the Firelights took place, documenting all the evidence from the crime scene and reenacting the shootout. This is when she finds one of Silco's goons hiding in the bottom of the ship. She's asking him questions. But just as she's making a breakthrough, the sheriff walks in and puts a hold on her plans. Wouldn't you know it, the sheriff is Grayson. He's moved up in the world since we last saw him. He tells Caitlin he'll handle it from here and says that she should take the graveyard shift, since she's so interested in doing extra work. Caitlin has to agree, and Grayson is the prisoner shipped to Stillwater Prison. We then take a trip back to the Zon and the Last Drop, which seems to be thriving under Silco's leadership. One of Silco's soldiers that was on the ship with Jinx complains about how Jinx lost her mind. She says Jinx is a problem, and everybody knows it. But Silco disagrees, saying it's her fault that things didn't go smoothly, that she shouldn't disappoint him again. When she leaves, Jinx drops down from the ceiling and explains what happened to Silco.
Sisters, right? Can't live with them, can't stuff them back in the old baby maker.
It's clear that they've fallen into a father-daughter relationship and that Silco is doing his best to use Jinx for his evil plans. Seriously, this guy's despicable. Back in Piltover, and Mel is overseeing her rather successful fundraiser when Jace walks in and asks to speak with her alone. He tells her about how Heimerdinger is blocking their new creations, and she says she agrees with Jace about the tech. She then tells Jace Piltover needs a new leader, like him, and that she's even spoken to investors who are ready to invest in him and his tech. It's his speech after all. He should do what he wants. Is it just me, or is Mel kind of manipulating Jace to get what she wants? Anyway, we see Jinx talking to the voices in her head, and one of them looks suspiciously like Milo, which means the trauma of that explosion is what made her go insane. Back to Piltover, and Jace is getting ready for his speech, telling Victor that he should go on stage with him as his partner. But Victor refuses, so Jace heads up on stage to the roaring applause of everybody. He starts with a joke, talks about his family, and how no one expected him to change the world like he did with Hexgates.
For we are the city of progress, and our future is bright.
But then he says that they're not done yet. Thinks about revealing his creations, but then decides against it, to the relief of Heimerdinger and his mother, and to the disappointment of Mel and Victor. Later, some enforcers are talking about Jace's speech, and they roast Caitlin for being super rich. This is when she spots a fire, and they all run to see what's happening. Caitlin rushes in with a fire extinguisher as they hear the voice of a trapped girl, which turns out to be a trap set by Jinx. Caitlin is the only one who survives. Then she sees Jinx run off before she passes out. Turns out that Jinx wasn't just here to blow up a building. She stole the gemstone that Jace and Victor built. The council says they need to hunt down the criminals that stole it before they make something super evil. And Jace says that they should stop all Hextech operations until they do, including the Hexgates. Unfortunately, the council ain't with that idea, because it means less trade and less money. And it's obvious they don't give a damn about Piltover's safety. They just care about their bottom line. This is when Mel says they need a more radical measure. They need to make Jace a counselor as well. After all, it's the only way to ensure that he can take care of Hextech and Piltover. Some of the members give some pushback, but Heimerdinger agrees, so they put it to a vote. Back with Jinx, and she's blasting some edgy music while working on some weapons. Silco walks in and demands an explanation for what she's done. But Jinx doesn't care about the building she blew up or the 6 enforcers that she killed. Instead, she just shows Silco the Hex gemstone that she stole, wishes him a happy progress day, and hugs him. And that's when Silco realizes the monster that he's created, and he loves it. Back in Piltover, Jace goes to visit Caitlin, who's mapping the whole investigation, and says she's sure there's one person behind the entire criminal operation in the Zon, being run in the Undercity where Silco and his goons all are, that if she can prove that, she can catch him. This is when Jace offers her a job as head of House Talus Security. After all, a counselor needs protection. Anyway, Caitlin actually declines, saying she already has a job, until Jace breaks the news that her parents spoke to the enforcers and she actually doesn't have a job. Furious, she says she doesn't need his or their charity, tells him to get out. We then follow Caitlin as she takes a nice little trip to Stillwater Prison to talk to the prisoner she found in the illegal ship the day before. Unfortunately, she can't talk to him because another inmate assaulted him during lunch and broke his jaw. Caitlin asks which inmate did it, and he sends her to the inmate. There, we see a familiar figure with pink hair boxing in a cell. It's Violet. The next episode, Everybody Wants to Be My Enemy, kicks off with a flashback to Caitlin as a kid racing through the woods in a shooting competition with Grayson. Caitlin nails all the targets, but notices Grayson holding her shot on the last one. Later at the victory party, Caitlin confronts Grayson, asking if her parents paid her to let Caitlin win. Grayson admits she did let Caitlin win, but not for money. No, Grayson did it because she thought the kid deserved to win. She then challenges Caitlin, asking her, "What are you shooting for?" It's a moment that really makes her think, and clearly one that stuck with Caitlin. Back in the present, Caitlin is interrogating Vi, trying to understand why she's in prison and why she attacked that inmate. Vi, of course, responds with sarcastic quips and provides zero helpful information. Frustrated, Caitlin starts to leave, but Vi then drops a snarky comment about Silco being evil. This is news to Caitlin, who only knows Silco as an industrialist. When Caitlin presses, Vi says that she has answers, but can't help from inside her cell. After some hesitation, Caitlin uses her connections to get Vi released. Thanks to an order from Jace, Vi is back. Meanwhile, back in Piltover, Marcus delivers a somber speech at the funeral for the enforcers Jinx killed. Afterwards, he visits Grayson's grave with his daughter. He still feels super guilty over her death. Later, he storms into Silco's office. He's furious about the chaos Jinx has caused, but Silco just brushes him off.
I can't make this go away for you unless you give me something to work with.
He clearly doesn't respect Marcus, and just suggests Marcus spin the crimes on the firelights instead. Marcus reluctantly agrees. He has no other choice. Before he leaves, Silco gives him some money to give to the victims' families, from an anonymous concerned citizen. Jace and Victor continue their work on the protection of Hextech, but things start to get tense. Jace discovers shady activity in the Hexgate logs, suggesting corruption. He pressures Marcus to act, and Marcus deflects by blaming the firelights. But Jace isn't so easily swayed, and puts big pressure on Marcus to root out this corruption. How ironic. Victor, meanwhile, starts coughing up blood and starts losing his vision. Jace asks him if he's okay, but he shrugs it off, clearly hiding how bad his health is, and he returns to the lab. Jinx, meanwhile, is working on a new Hextech device based on Jace's research. After messing around with it a bit, she finally makes some sort of device. When it activates, the energy reminds her of the explosion that killed her family. Overwhelmed, she runs off in tears. Later, she travels back to the arcade she and her siblings used to visit, reveling in all the memories of her past, before taking on the same boxing game Vi used to practice on and having yet another nervous breakdown. While that's happening, Caitlin takes Vi to a train heading into the Undercity, but Vi decides that it's just too risky. Instead, she parkours her way across rooftops, and Caitlin is seriously struggling to keep up. They make it back to just above the last drop, where Vi takes a moment to reminisce before kicking two thugs' butts, stealing a jacket for herself and tossing the other thugs' clothes to Caitlin to disguise her enforcer uniform. At a food stall run by Jericho, Vi devours a bowl of fish, claiming hunger brought her there. But Jericho secretly passes her a napkin with a sigil, their next clue. They follow it to a brothel where Vi jokingly suggests Caitlin pretend to be a prostitute. Caitlin refuses.
So what'll it be, man or woman?
But Vi teases her, calling her a hot cupcake before heading off to question the brothel's madame. Inside, Vi learns Savika, Silco's number 2, has been a regular visitor. The madame says that she will tell her how to find Savika, but there's no news about Powder. Back in the lab, Victor experiments with a new invention, a hex core, which could adapt and learn on its own. When Jace questions if it's safe, Victor bluntly says, of course not. Later, Victor's in the lab slaving away at his new invention, even though his assistant, Sky, is clearly into him. While experimenting, he collapses, his blood reacting with the hex core and weaving itself into the device. At the same time, Mel and Jace's professional partnership turns personal as they spend the night together after attending an opera and discussing politics. Victor wakes up in dire health to see Jace by his bedside. Jace tells him the doctor said he doesn't look good, and he just asks how long he has left. Meanwhile, Marcus goes to tell Silco about Jace's plan to uncover the corruption that they're both a part of. But Silco has a solution. He gives him a grenade that will implicate the Firelights as the primary suspects in the investigation. Marcus's guilt is eating him alive at this point, and he considers taking himself and Silco out in one fell swoop, but he can't go through with it. Seeing Marcus's support wavering, Silco tells Jinx she needs to crack the hex deck soon, and that she's the only one that can do it. But when she says she keeps seeing visions of the day their family died, Silco takes Jinx to the river where Vander tried to drown him. He tells her that letting go of her past, letting Powder die, is the only way to become strong. In a seriously messed up baptism, he dunks her underwater, declaring Jinx is perfect. Back with Vi and Caitlin, they track down Savika at a gambling table. Vi interrupts the gambling game with a knee to Savika's face, sparking an intense fight. Savika uses her mechanical arm, complete with shimmer injections, to gain the upper hand. Still, Vi manages to hold her own, but when she asks about Powder, Savika drops a bomb. Powder works for Silco. Not only that, but she's like his daughter.
She works for him.
Shocked, Vi hesitates, giving Savika an opening to stab her with a blade hidden in her prosthetic. She's about to finish Vi off, but Caitlin arrives just in time, shooting at Savika. It hits her in the shoulder, but she manages to make an escape. She helps Vi up and takes her to get treated with some light banter as well. I think I see some chemistry. Meanwhile, Jinx finally cracks Hextech, building a machine that looks a lot like Jace's first device, showing her growing genius and danger. While that is happening, Savika stumbles back to Silco's office, dripping shimmer. She informs him that Vi is alive, leaving Silco stunned. He believed that Vi was long dead. Episode 6, When These Walls Come Tumbling Down, opens with kids jumping in water. It's a surprising but welcome change of pace. We see a young kid build a mechanical boat that floats in the water, but he's using a stick to walk, and as he tries to keep up with the boat, he falls flat on his face. He ends up following the boat into a cave where he sees a big salamander-like creature next to a suspicious-looking man. The man tells him the creature is a mutation he cultivated, that he needs help getting it alive, asking the kid to help him. If you haven't figured this out yet, the kid is Victor. This is a flashback. Now in the present, Victor is looking over that same oasis, and Heimerdinger comes to see him. He tells him that he feels for his situation, but Victor just says he's going to be forgotten to the annals of time. And Heimerdinger just has some cliche nonsense to refute that claim. We shift to a painting, and it's Mel doing the artistry. Jace shows up and tells her Victor's dying. The reason he has this disease is because of some gas fissures down in the Undercity, which is exactly the kind of thing he wanted to stop using Hextech, but ended up getting lost in politics and trade disputes instead. Mel tells him he should be with Victor, and asks why he came to her with this. His answer is simple. Nothing feels impossible to him when he's with her. Meanwhile, Victor is doing the 1,000-yard stare into his new adaptive hex core, before reaching out to it, and the scene cuts away. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. We then cut to Jinx, who's taking the piss out of a bartender. He's telling her about a couple of girls Silco has put a hit out on, Vi and Caitlin, but doesn't tell her who these girls are.
You're doing great, Chuck. Here, for your troubles.
Jinx just thanks him for the info and gives him a present in return. A bomb on his back, which turns out to be a paint bomb. That's a pretty disturbing prank. Meanwhile, Caitlin is still moving Vi to safety, with Silco's goons chasing after them. They make it to a place that is the same sign as the napkin Jericho gave them and make their way in. In the background, a firelight looks on. Back with the bad guys, Savika comes to report her progress to Silco, but walks right into Jinx's trap and gets knocked out. Jinx snaps her awake and asks her what she's up to, but Savika just laughs and spills the tea without any interrogation needed. She tells Jinx her sister is back in town and she's looking for her. What's more, Savika says she's with a girl enforcer and that she replaced Jinx. Now that she mentions this, Caitlin does have blue hair. Anyway, Savika says that Vi being back means it's only a matter of time before Jinx implodes in on herself. And that's when Silco will see that she's more trouble than she's actually worth. But Jinx just laughs it off and gives Savika a spin in her chair. We shift to Marcus, and oh my god, he is still wallowing in guilt. Anyway, he steps out of his office and walks into his daughter's room to see Silco. He's there, playing with his daughter, with his henchman in the background. He tells Marcus about Vi coming back from the dead and says that it's a problem that needs to be resolved immediately before knocking down his daughter's tower in a not-so-subtle threat to her safety. I cannot wait to see Silco get owned. This guy is scum. Meanwhile, Victor shows Jace what he's discovered about the Hex core. It responds to organic matter. This could be the breakthrough they need to cure Victor. Unfortunately, the plant he used to showcase this discovery ends up dying. It's been the same with every plant. They reject the transmutation. Jace says they can figure it out, but Victor says he can feel his body eroding. There may not be enough time, but Jace reassures him, saying they'll bring Heimerdinger on board and find a cure for him no matter what. Back with Caitlin, she helps Vi up again, and they see some creepy hooded figure in the distance. Caitlin asks what this place is, and Vi tells her it's the place where the most neglected people of the Zon end up, and it takes one look to see that it's full of shimmer addicts, the kind of people the aristocrats in Piltover never even need to think about. It's clear Vi doesn't trust Caitlin yet, and starts having visions of powder before passing out. Jace and Victor, meanwhile, show Heimerdinger the Hex core. Unfortunately, all this old cadre can see is the destruction of their civilization. Jace says it could save Victor's life, but Heimerdinger has made up his mind. It's evil. It needs to go.
You've changed. What did you do?
What do you mean, Professor?
I'd like to take this time to point out that if Heimerdinger had his way, the Hexgates wouldn't be a thing, and Piltover wouldn't be as successful as it is now. So maybe he doesn't know everything, you know? Heimerdinger tries bullying Jace into getting rid of it, but he can't do that anymore. Jace is a member of the council, and he says it's up for them to decide whether it gets to stay or not. This is when Victor says he knows somebody else who could help, and I think he's talking about the scientist from his childhood. Spoiler alert, it's Singed. While all that's happening, Vi is out cold, and Caitlin is watching over her. That's when some funny-looking guy shows up and asks if Vi is alright. Caitlin responds by pointing a gun in his face, but he assures her that he is a friend of Vi's. At least, he used to be. Caitlin says Vi needs a doctor, and he tells her he knows somebody who can help. So she follows him to some lady who makes potions, but the potion isn't free. So Caitlin has to trade her gun for it. The friend decides to not tag along, telling Caitlin to apologize on his behalf. Caitlin leaves, but not before giving the poor guy a hug. Caitlin is a good person, and I am a fan. Back in Piltover, Jace is working when Marcus brings him the grenade Silco gave him, and puts the blame on the firelights. But Jace isn't happy with just that, and decides that they thoroughly search each and every shape that comes through the Hexgates to ensure the city's safety. Before leaving, Marcus asks Jace about the prisoner Caitlin released, since she forged his signature to do it. Jace is surprised, but plays it off like a champ, saying he and Caitlin have it covered. From there, we shift to the council meeting, and Heimerdinger is doing everything he can to get to the council to turn on Jace. But Jace brings up his failures to stop the shimmer addiction in the Zon, as well as attacks on the Hexgates and Academy grounds. He says Heimerdinger has done a lot for Piltover, but he's too stuck in his old ways and needs to retire. He holds a vote, and it's unanimous. Heimerdinger is out. Back in the lanes, Caitlin wakes Vi up with a potion, and there's a serious moment of tension. That's when Caitlin sees the drawings on the wall and asks Vi about her sister and parents. This leads to the whole enforcers killed my parents talk, which isn't very fun. But their fight is short-lived, because it's interrupted by Silco. He's here to rub Jinx being on his side in her face and then kill her. But she and Caitlin managed to get away thanks to some quick thinking and a collapsed building. Looks like Silco got caught in it, but he's alive. And he's super mad about Caitlin and Vi getting away. Oh, and remember that flare Vi gave Powder in the 3rd episode? Well, Jinx lights it up, and Vi sees it in the distance. She's going after her sister. The scene ends with enforcers getting ready for something big, all led by Marcus. We have another Victor flashback, and he sees that Singed has used shimmer on his salamander thing to keep it alive. Singed thought Victor would understand, but he's just a kid and runs away in horror. But years later, now at Death's Door himself, he returns to Singed again. He understands. Meanwhile, Silco gets back to his office thinking about how many problems one girl could cause. There he sees Jinx is present. Savika tied up to the roof with the word liar written all over her. Yikes. We cut back to Jinx, as the flare that she's holding runs out. She throws it away in frustration, thinking that Vi won't show up. But just then, she hears Vi say, Powder. Vi hugs her, and Jinx drops the Hex gem.
Things changed when you left. I changed.
They have a small moment of reconciliation, and it looks like they're going to be back together again. Until she sees Caitlin and realizes Savika was telling the truth. Cue another total Jinx breakdown where she points her gun at Vi and accuses her of just coming back here to get the Hex gem. But their argument is cut short by firelights. A big fight breaks out, and Vi sees the ruthless killer her sister has turned into. During the skirmish, one of the firelights gets away with the Hex gem, and another one knocks Vi out and takes her with him. leaving Jinx screaming out for her sister. The boy savior opens with an extremely cool montage of the firelights, and these guys just have infinite amount of aura. We then cut to Vi and Caitlin tied up and arguing about how little they trust each other. This is when somebody comes in and takes Vi out of the room. The mask blinding her is taken off, and she's face to face with a firelight. He takes off his mask to reveal Echo. Vi tries to reconnect with Echo, but he just wants to interrogate her. Vi is hurt that he doesn't trust her, but she's proud of him for standing up to her, and just gets out of her handcuffs and hugs him. It's really wholesome. Back with Victor, and he's cooking something up with Singed. The shady guy says he wants to see the hex core, but he brushes him off on the topic. He then gives Victor a variant of Shimmer that would help him survive the transition, before warning him that if he uses it, they will hate him. And then he drops a bombshell. This is exactly the kind of thing that led to him separating himself from Heimerdinger, though he's hesitant. Victor thinks Jace will understand. Jace, meanwhile, is seemingly in his blacksmith era, and is cooking up some hammers to get his mind off things. Mel comes to him and asks him what's up. He tells her he's feeling guilty over getting rid of Heimerdinger, but she says it was the right thing to do. He's also worried about Caitlin. He hasn't heard from her in a while. Mel says she'll stall the council for now, but they need Jace back soon. First things first, Jace has to save Victor's life. We then see the return of Savika in Silco's office, though she looks much worse for wear. She then tells Silco that the Chem Barons, whoever they are, have scheduled a meeting. Silco doesn't want to go, but he doesn't seem to have a choice. When he tries to go find Jinx, Savika tells him to leave it be. Because, I'm paraphrasing here, that as someone with daddy issues herself, she knows Jinx will come to him when she's ready. Speaking of Jinx, can you guess what she's doing? That's right. Having another manic episode while she's stapling together the cut she just got in the fight.
She was there for me, not the Enforcer.
She sees a vision of what seems to be a firelight and pretends to shoot it. And you know this must mean that trouble is brewing. Echo, meanwhile, takes Vi to his base of operations, a beautiful little place constructed around a real-life tree, something it seems Vi has never seen before. Vi says she should have been there for him, but he just tells her not to worry about all that. Then he tries convincing her that Powder is gone. All that's left is Jinx. When Vi disagrees, he shows her a mural of everybody that they've lost, and Powder is on it too, which makes even Vi think that Powder might actually be long gone. We then cut to the Piltover Bridge, and there's a big old brawl going down between people from the Undercity and Enforcers, because they set up a huge blockade on the orders of Jace. Victor manages to get through, and Jace tears into him for violating the blockade. When Victor asks him why he set it up, he says the people from the Undercity are dangerous, at which point Victor reminds Jace that he is from the Undercity. Jace immediately realizes he's being out of line, and apologizes, asking if Victor's friend found a way to help him. Victor just lies and says no, and Jace says that they'll keep at it. This definitely is not going to end well. While that whole mess is going on, Silco and Savika make it to the Chem Barons meeting, and they are not happy with Silco. It looks like they're a bunch of crime bosses that work hand in hand, and they all have a bone to pick with him. They ask him about Jinx's attack, and ask him what he's going to do to fix it. They want to give the Hex Gem back in exchange for peace with Piltover, saying Jinx is too unhinged to be trusted. This is when Savika turns around with a gas tank and releases lethal gas into the room. Silco gives them all masks one by one, reminding them where they came from and who they owe that to, all the while not even using a mask himself. He then leaves, having reestablished who the big dog really is. Now, I hate the guy, but even I have to admit, that was badass. We then see Mel get a letter from her assistant, which I can only assume is from her family that exiled her, and immediately cut back to Caitlin, who starts asking Echo what she's done with Vi. She begs him to let her go, saying that she's the one he wants, before Vi shows up and makes fun of her for being her hero.
My hero.
But I thought they were hurting you.
Because Vi put in a good word for her, Echo's willing to let her go, but only so she can go back to Piltover. Back with Silco, he's suddenly jumped by Jinx, who basically starts bullying Silco for not telling her the truth about Vi being back. But Silco just manipulates his way out of the situation, saying that he's her family, that he needs her, telling her she needs to complete the Hex Gem weapon that she's working on. Meanwhile, Caitlin walks around Echo's home and says that it's beautiful. Echo then snaps back at her, saying that the people in Piltover would have this place turned to rubble and ash if they had their way. Caitlin says, it's all a misunderstanding. The Enforcers think the Firelights work for Silco, but that's when Echo tells her the truth. Silco is paying the Enforcers to wage war on them. Echo then shows her the gemstone he got from Jinx, and Caitlin says that he has to give it back. It's the only way to keep the peace. Echo agrees, but on one condition. He's gonna hand it over himself. Speaking of Piltover, Victor is taking apart one of Jinx's bombs and is admiring the work. When Jace asks if the weaponry suggests that the person who made this could weaponize Hex Tech, Victor says that it's a stretch. But Mel thinks that they can, and says that Piltover needs to repair its own defenses. They need to use Hex Tech to make weapons. Victor is disgusted by the idea. He made Hextech to help the people of the Undercity, not to wage war. Jace doesn't like the idea either, but Mel says it's just a necessary precaution, that the decision will always be Jace's. Jace and Victor argue over whether or not they should go along with their plan, and Jace says they might not have a choice, but Victor tells him there's always a choice, leaving Jace with his thoughts. This sends Victor over the edge, and he injects himself with the Shimmer variant as Jinx sits menacingly on the Piltover Bridge. We also catch a glimpse of Heimerdinger, who's lurking in the shadows of Piltover before seeing Victor undergo his transformation, and it looks really painful. We then cut to Vi, Echo, and Caitlin making their way back to Piltover before Vi stops and says she can't leave her sister alone again, and turns back. But not before Caitlin hugs her goodbye, a hug that Jinx sees from up top, and this one really annoys her. Echo and Caitlin head on, only to be stopped by Marcus and the Enforcers. Caitlin says she has proof that Silco is behind everything, and Echo shows the Hex Gem as proof. So Marcus shoots him before pointing his gun at Caitlin.
I told you to leave this alone.
Unfortunately for him, they get rushed by little firelight-like bombs, thanks to Jinx. We also see that the bullet didn't kill Echo, he's actually alive. Caitlin, however, injured her leg and can't really move. We see Jinx shoot an Enforcer as Marcus, severely wounded, tells Caitlin to tell his daughter he loves her before he bites the dust. In the meantime, Vi has come back to make sure Caitlin is okay. Jinx sees this, losing all trust in Vi, and just starts shooting at her and Caitlin. They manage to get out of her way, and Echo jumps back in. He gets them the Hex Gem and tells them to make a run for it while he fights Jinx. We get some seriously cool animation before and during the fight, and Echo has her beat, but he hesitates to take the final shot. And Jinx blows a bomb in his hesitation. It looks like they're both cooked. In the penultimate episode, Oil and Water, we start with a flashback to Mel's childhood in Noxus. She's standing in a shattered throne room when her mom, Mbessa, joins her. Mbessa lectures Mel about the power of war, and Mel seems to be with the whole war thing. But when guards drag in a captured princess, Mel begs for her mercy. Mbessa, however, isn't having this. She's a symbol of the old regime, and she can't have a revolution happening all because she spared one girl. Mbessa beheads her without hesitation, which seriously disturbs young Mel. In the present, Mel wakes up from the nightmare, startled by the memory. Above her bed is a painting of the girl's bloodied necklace. Jace is still asleep next to her, oblivious to his girlfriend's nightmare and her past. Vi gets Caitlin to safety and runs back to the bridge to see what happened.
Jinx!
Meanwhile, Silco makes it to the bridge and sees Jinx there. As the Enforcers rush to the scene, we see that Jinx manages to snag the Hex Gem at the last moment. Silco picks her up, as the Enforcers watch on from the other side of the broken bridge, symbolizing that any remaining chance for peace between Piltover and the Zaun has been lost. As morning rises, Jace and Mel stand over the death and destruction on the Piltover Bridge, and seeing its effects firsthand makes Jace throw up, while Mel stares on. Meanwhile, Caitlin and Vi sneak into the Kierman's home and are immediately staring down the barrel of a gun pointed by Caitlin's mom. She introduces Vi, before having an argument with her parents about everything that she learned. Caitlin eventually convinces her to let her and Vi speak to the council. Finally, something goes the good guy's way, man. But first, we take a trip back to the Undercity where Silco has brought Jinx to Singed to save her life.
But the process would be the bad thing.
It looks like he does actually care about her. He asks Silco if he wants to go through with this and if he's prepared to lose her, but Silco just says she won't die. She can't. The doctor then knocks Silco out for his own sanity, as he puts it. He says he had a daughter once too, right before Silco passes out. We then cut to Savika, who's visited by one of the crime bosses, Finn, from the meeting. He has a plan. Since Silco seems too preoccupied with Jinx and her shenanigans, he thinks Savika should be ruling in his place. She laughs it off as a weak attempt to play to her ego, but Finn says it's a matter of brain power. War is brewing with Piltover, and she needs to make a rational choice. Loyalty to Silco and certain doom, or betray him with a shot at survival. We then see Mel standing in front of a ship as her mother walks off of it. Mel asks her mother why she's here, and she tries to play it off as a friendly visit. But after the niceties are dropped, she tells Mel that her brother is dead, that she came here because she heard Hextech was about to delve into the weapons business. But Mel rejects her mother's ideas immediately, saying she does not need her guidance. Then her mom just hops on a blimp with some fine young man to, and I quote, sample the local cuisine. Gross. Back at the Kierman's house, Caitlin tells Vi that they will speak to the council tonight. They then bond over Vi's story of her and Powder as kids, and it's a super touching moment. It's also obvious that Vi blames herself for what happened to Powder. We then immediately cut to Jinx waking up at the doctor's and having intense visions about Caitlin and Vi before passing out again. When Silco wakes up, he sees the table covered in Jinx's blood and puts a knife to the doctor's throat, asking her what he's done. We then visit an old friend, Heimerdinger, who's walking through the Undercity and seeing the depravity and violence up there firsthand. but he also sees a kid, who gives him a couple of nuts and bolts, so he gives her a toy back before her mother whisks her away. We then see him come across Echo's hoverboard and admire it, before running into Echo himself.
Counselor Heimerdinger?
It's just Heimerdinger now.
He says Echo needs medical attention, but he says he needs to go home. It's not safe for him here. Looks like Heimerdinger has other plans. From there, we see Mel's mom relaxing in a hot tub and getting a massage. Again, gross. And we see that she's talking to Jace, which isn't awkward at all. He tries to leave, but then she tells him he and the council lack the expertise to lead Piltover. He disagrees with her ideals, but she puts it simply. If he doesn't listen to her, he's gonna end up dead. He thinks about this as the council talks about their issues, and that's when Vi and Caitlin walk in to plead their case. Caitlin tells them all about what she learned, about Silco, Shimmer, and how he wants them to make the Undercity independent. But when Jace learns that Jinx has the Hex Gem, Jace says they need to go in by force using Hextech. Mel disagrees with him, saying they need to choose diplomacy. Vi says there's no agreement to be reached with Silco, but the council's heard enough. They tell her to leave. She does. Caitlin runs after her, saying she can fix this, that they just need to try. But Vi says she can't. Nobody can. Then she asks her about them, and Vi just says to forget her. Ouch. That's some harsh rejection right there. Meanwhile, there's somebody whose plan actually worked. Victor. He drops his cane and starts running, and to his surprise, he can. He goes back to his lab prepared to do the process all over again, not just to fix his leg, but cure his disease this time. Meanwhile, his assistant Sky walks into the room just as he's transforming and tries pulling him off the X-Core. This turns out to be a really bad idea, because she literally gets obliterated in the process. This destroys Victor. He got what he always wanted, but at what cost? Meanwhile, his partner Jace is already cooking up Hextech weapons when Vi approaches him. She wants to make Silco pay. So does Jace. There's one small problem: the Council. But Vi doesn't care about the Council and picks up one of the Atlas gauntlets Jace made for Progress Day. They remind her of Vander's gauntlets, and she smiles as she puts them on. She then tells Jace her plan: shut down Silco's Shimmer supply and the Undercity will turn on him. We see this plan go into immediate effect, with enforcers led by Jace raiding one of his manufacturing facilities. Unfortunately, they get attacked by some of his Shimmer-fueled goons, and Jace is cornered. Until Vi jumps out with the Atlas gauntlets and absolutely unloads on one of the goons. Vi and Jace kick an ungodly amount of ass, showcasing all the Hextech weapons abilities. Until Jace accidentally shoots a kid. The guilt of this moment is eating Jace alive, and it gets especially worse when he sees the kid die in front of his eyes, with a whole group of other kids watching from above. We see Caitlin, wondering where she went wrong, as her wound starts to bleed in the shower, thinking about Vi. But that brooding session is cut short when she sees a familiar drawing on her bathroom mirror, and hears a sound that is suspiciously close to what a Shimmer monster makes. It's Jinx. She's alive, and she's come for Caitlin. Here we are, boys and girls. The final episode of Season 1, aptly titled, The Monster That You Created. We start pretty much where we left off. Jace mourning over the death of the kid he shot. Vi tries to comfort him, but Jace says that it's over. He won't be responsible for the death of more children. When Vi pushes back, he asks her to give the gauntlets back, and it looks like they're gonna fight, but then Jace just walks off, saying she won't make it alone. So Vi goes after destroying the facility. After all, she's flying solo now. Afterwards, Silco and Savika visit the facility, realizing that with Marcus gone, there's no one left to protect them in Piltover. Meanwhile, one of the crime bosses is mourning the death of her kid, which just happens to be the one that Jace killed. Well, isn't that just swell? She complains that this is all Jinx's fault, but Silco just tells Savika to help her with the body, as Sven just looks at her, his proposal ringing in her brain. We're back with Victor now, who's absolutely devastated about his assistant Sky's death. He also finds a note she wrote him about how he inspired her, and he just starts crying. This is when Victor sees the Hexcore calling out to him, but he's seen what it is capable of now and decides to destroy it, but he ends up not doing it. This turns out to be a terrible idea, because the Hexcore zaps him from behind, dropping him to the ground. You know, I hate admitting I'm wrong, but I gotta say, Heimerdinger might have been right. We cut to Mel's mom enjoying wine in a foot massage until Mel smacks her wine away and tells her to get out of her city. Mel knows that she pushed Jace to make the weapons, and her mom says it's so she can use them to win her own war. Mel can't believe she's done this, but her mom doesn't budge. Hell, she'd light the world on fire if it meant protecting her family. Mel then asks her mom why she exiled her, and she says it's because Mel was her only weakness. She couldn't stand seeing her eyes every time she made a harsh decision. She says that they need these weapons to win the war, that after they do, she can return home with her where she belongs. Well, that's all super convenient for Mel's mom, isn't it? I don't trust her for a second. Victor, meanwhile, is back at his old brooding spot, where he drops his assistant's ashes, and we see him using his cane to walk again. The effects of the Hexcore are gone. And it seems like so is his will to live, because he's ready to jump off, until Jace stops him, just as he once stopped Jace.
Am I interrupting?
They talk for a bit, and Victor says Jace has to destroy the Hex core. His disease doesn't matter, he has to do it. The friends reminisce about their journey, realizing they both messed up big time. As Victor puts it, in the pursuit of great, we failed to do good. Wow, I just got chills. Back in the Undercity, and Silco gets a visit from Finn and the crime boss that lost her child. They tell Silco he's gotten old and has lost sight of his mission, as Savika raises her blade behind him. Silco says that he's always known he could die any day, but he still believes in one thing: loyalty. That's when Savika swings her blade and cuts open Finn's jaw. The other crime lord falls in line.
I would have had your son killed for this, though I suppose we're ahead on that account.
And Silco stares at a piece of paper from House Talus as she leaves. Later, we see Silco meet up with Jace? What? They talk about the city and the threats beyond the walls. This is when Silco gives him his demands: free trade routes, amnesty, access to the Hexgates, and even sovereignty as a separate state. Jace says he's insane, that the reason he's negotiating isn't because he's scared for himself. He's scared for what would happen to the Zon. Jace agrees, but he lays out his demands. No more Shimmer production. Return the Hex Gem, and most importantly, hand over Jinx. Silco tries to weasel his way out of that last one, but Jace is clear. If he wants his nation of Zon, he needs to hand her over. While this is happening, we see Heimerdinger and Echo go back to Echo's home, where Heimerdinger sees everything that they've built in such a short time, and is just amazed. Meanwhile, Silco is sitting by Vander's statue, saying he finally understands what Vander went through. Even though Jace is giving him everything that they ever wanted, it still hurts all the same. What he doesn't know is that Jinx is there behind the statue, listening. Back at the last drop, it's all business as usual, with Savika playing cards and everybody minding their own business, until Vi walks in with the Atlas gauntlets on. Savika tells everybody to get out, and they have a stare-off before getting into a fight. Vi stops to have a drink in between the fight before tossing a table at Savika. Unfortunately, Savika brings out her blade and gets the upper hand in the fight, kicking Vi's ass and dropping her to the ground. This is when she sees a vision of Vander, telling her to keep going. So she gets back up with just one gauntlet, and goes at it with Savika again. This time, she figures out how to use the gauntlet's full potential and tosses Savika around like the trash that she is, before just unleashing a scream and deciding to go after Silco next. Well, until Jinx shows up and knocks her out. Meanwhile, back in Piltover, Jace tells the council that the Undercity is right to not trust them, and tells everybody that they were all wrong. All of them except for Mel. He then tells them about the deal he made with Silco, and they all lose their minds. All of them except Mel, who just stares at her ring. Back to our main character, and Vi wakes up tied in ropes. Jinx is talking to her, saying no one ever stays dead. She then says Silco thinks he made Jinx, but it wasn't him. It was Vi. Vi apologizes, and says she never meant to leave her. But Jinx says she never left. She was always in her head, pushing her on. Vi says that the only thing that kept her going in prison was the thought of coming back to her, and Jinx says that she believes her. This is when she lights the candles and show a tied-up and gagged Silco. Serves him right, I guess. As Vi's eyes adjust to the light, she sees the setup Jinx has done. It's a dinner party, and it's really messed up, with dolls and memorabilia of their dead brothers and Vander all placed in different seats. She then tells Vi she visited Caitlin this morning, and it looks like she's got her head in a pan, but it's just a sick prank. Unfortunately, the sickness isn't over, because Vi sees two seats where her sister can sit. One has Jinx written on it, and the other has powder written on it. She then rolls Caitlin out and hands Vi a gun. The choice is simple: shoot Caitlin and get powder back, or don't, and turn her into Jinx forever. Vi says she can't, so Jinx points the gun at Caitlin, but Vi begs her not to shoot, and says they can just leave. Leave the lanes in Piltover and Zon all behind, and never come back. Jinx seems like she's open to this idea, until Silco starts squirming and Jinx undoes his mouth gag. He then starts spewing his nonsense about how he'd never betray her, even though he's totally going to, and says that Vi is lying to her. This gives Jinx a mini meltdown, and she shoots at Milo's dummy, telling it to shut up. Yikes. Anyway, that gives Caitlin enough time to get loose and get Jinx's Gatling gun, which she points at her. Jinx tries shooting her, but Caitlin gives some warning fire, so she drops the gun. Unfortunately for Caitlin, Jinx is juiced up on some Shimmer strain, and she uses her inhuman speed to knock her down. She gets her gun back and points it at Caitlin, ready to shoot, but Vi pleads with her, begging her to remember who she is. Silco has had enough, and breaks loose, grabbing hold of Jinx's pistol, so Jinx unloads on him, and with his dying breath, Silco says he never would have handed Jinx over, not for anything, and tells her she's perfect before dying.
Don't cry. You're perfect.
Jinx cries for a bit, but then locks in and sits in the chair labeled Jinx. It's official. Powder is gone for good. Only Jinx remains. Jinx says that she's not the only one who changed. Vi has too. So she says, here's to the new us, and puts the hex gem in a gun, which she shoots directly at the council's building right as they're voting. We see shots of Heimerdinger and Echo, Savika, the Zahn doctor, and Mel's mom, and then we see Vi and Caitlin helplessly watch as the weapon soars through the sky. And you know the worst part? The entire council voted to agree to Silco's terms and establish peace. All of this was for nothing, because just as they do that, the weapon crashes into the building, and that is where the season ends. Season 2 opens with the episode Heavy is the Crown. In the aftermath of Jinx's attack on the council, Chase is slowly waking up. He sees Mel in front of him, and they're both okay. Unfortunately, not everybody is. Cassandra Kiriman, aka Caitlin's mother, is dead, and Victor is on the verge of dying, so he does the only thing he can to save his friend. He uses the Hex Core on him. Caitlin is at her mom's funeral. Vi watches on from the crowd, devastated for her friend. The colors perfectly show how Caitlin is feeling, like the world around her is collapsing. Afterwards, Caitlin is back at the site of the attack, remembering her mother. Mel comforts her, but that comfort doesn't last for very long, because Councilman Salo is pushed into frame by Mel's mom. He lost his legs in Jinx's attack. His prerogative is simple: invasion of the Undercity. He says they should pull out all the stops, and even says they should use Hex Tech. Mel believes that there's another way. They should put a bounty out on Jinx's head, since she did the attack by herself.
How many more counselors have to be blown to pieces before you finally wake up?
But Councilwoman Shula doesn't want to leave this up to chance, and Salo agrees. So after a snarking comment from her mother, she agrees to endorse the invasion of the Undercity, on one condition: no Hex Tech. Shula agrees, and it's settled. After that whole thing, Caitlin is opening mail sent to the family when her dad comes and sits down with her. Caitlin blames herself for the attack. She could have stopped Jinx, but her dad doesn't blame her and gives her something important: the Kiriman Key. The key gives the holder access to the Kiriman family archives, which holds secrets about Piltover no one has access to. According to him, it's her legacy now. That's when we see Vi is still there, and her dad does not like it. Still, Caitlin hugs Vi, crying for a bit before stopping. Vi says Caitlin was right. There's no powder anymore, only Jinx. She says she should be the one to take her sister down, but Caitlin tells her about the plan to invade the Undercity. Vi wants to help, and Caitlin says that she can, as an enforcer.
Kate, I can't wear this.
Vi immediately refuses. After all, those were the people that killed her parents. She can't even imagine being on their side. Caitlin tries her best to get Vi on her side, but Vi says she's not doing it like this, and she leaves. Side note, this is really hypocritical of Vi. She expects Caitlin to trust her, someone who's both a member of the Undercity and just so happens to be sisters with the murderer of Caitlin's mother, but she won't trust Caitlin back? That's a double standard. So Vi heads out, wandering through the streets. She ends up under a bridge, sharing a drink with a stranger who looks like he lost somebody in the attack too. We then cut to Jace and Mel, and we see Victor, who's, Victor looks like that. He's in suspended animation, and even though he's technically alive with a stable pulse, Jace doesn't know if he'll actually make it. Mel comforts him, before giving him an update on the council's decision, as well as Caitlin. Speaking of Caitlin, she's at her mother's grave, and is daydreaming about taking out Jinx, until Jace interrupts her train of thought. They catch up. He tells her about Victor, and she tells him about Vi refusing to take part with the Enforcers, which doesn't surprise Jace. Caitlin says Vi thinks Jace's Hextech gauntlets will fix everything, and Jace jokes that she might be right, but Caitlin disagrees. Hextech is useful, but it's not what's going to save them. Meanwhile, Vi's been drinking all night with the nice stranger who also happened to be an enforcer. She's thinking about heading back to the Undercity when she's approached by an enforcer named Maddie. According to Maddie, Vi is something of a legend among the enforcers, and it's all thanks to Caitlin.
Caitlin made quite a scene at the station when they tried to deny your enlistment.
Apparently, Caitlin fought tooth and nail to make sure Vi was allowed to be an enforcer in an official capacity, and even threatened to withdraw the Kiriman funding if they refused. Hearing all of this, Vi realizes she was in the wrong. She wakes up her drunk compatriot, and they make their way to the councilman's memorial. Turns out Caitlin's mom wasn't the only counselor to bite the dust. Irius Bulbach and Tormund Hoskell were also lost in the explosion. As Mel gives a heartfelt speech on the occasion, Vi notices a suspicious-looking enforcer who drops a bag at the feet of an even more suspicious-looking woman. Vi follows him as he makes his way to the stage, but is stopped by two enforcers. Turns out she was right to be suspicious. The woman in the veil was the villain from Season 1 who lost her son, and the fake enforcer smacks Mel in the face with the gun, takes aim at her, but then shoots in the sky. It was a flare. What ensues is absolute chaos, as the people attending the memorial start hot-footing it out of there. What's more, the flare was sending a signal to the ship in the sky. What comes out of that ship is pure horror. The only way I can describe these things are shimmer super soldiers. They begin attacking everybody, while the lady chases down Jace with a chainsaw, and we see how powerful those shimmer monstrosities really are, tearing apart enforcers like they're piñatas. Caitlin gets cornered by one of them, and it looks like she's cooked, until Vi jumps in at the last moment. Together, they manage to take one of them down and reconcile their very brief differences. We also see Maddie get grabbed by one of the monsters, but her partner saves her, only to get chased by the monster himself. Meanwhile, Vi makes her way to the armory, while Jace is finally cornered by the crazy chainsaw lady. She cuts his back and is about to fillet him, until Vi absolutely flattens her with the Hextech hammer. The threat isn't over though, because Caitlin, Maddie, her partner, and the drunk enforcer are all being circled by the shimmer monsters. Vi and Jace charge up the hammer to save them, but they didn't need to, because Mel's mom, Mbessa, and her soldiers take down the bad boys almost instantly. I might hate her, but that was pretty badass. After the whole fight, Vi makes her way to Caitlin, who's super pissed, but Vi convinces her that an invasion isn't the way to go, and they have another intimate moment. Methinks they might be more than friends. Anyway, the 3 remaining council members are having a meeting, with Mbessa watching over like a hawk. Salo says this is proof that it's not just Jinx they need to be worried about, and they need to use Hextech or they'll be too dead to worry about any principles. But that's when Caitlin barges in, and she says that she has a new plan. Salo is furious that she'd interrupt a council meeting, but she just tells him to shut up. Instead of an invasion, Caitlin's going to lead a strike team that will find Jinx, get rid of Shimmer, and take down any remaining links to Silco. The team? Maddie, her teammate, the drunk enforcer, and Vi, wearing the suit and badge. They all have Hextech-powered weapons made by Jace, and they're ready to get some justice. Victor is seen unmoving, before the episode ends with a man in some snowy hellscape facing some wolves and preparing a gas grenade. This is the mad scientist Singed, the same one who created Shimmer. There's going to be a lot going on in this season, and it's only just getting started. The episode Watch It All Burn kicks off underwater? Not to worry, it's just Jinx having a vision of Silco, and it's pretty safe to say she has some regrets about killing him. Still, she was done being bossed around by her and Violet, so she's fine with it. Only problem is that with Silco gone, there's a power struggle in the Undercity. We see a montage of Silco and his various villainous vatos over the years. So many came and went, but Silco survived, until he didn't. We then see a little kid being chased by some thugs, and he ends up falling on Jinx. The thugs recognize her, but it's too late. She's already shot them all down. Jinx basically tells the kid ending somebody's life is the best feeling in the world, and the kid follows her? There's a serious lack of good parenting in Zaun. We then cut to one of the crime lords of the Undercity named Smeech. Based on that name, you'd probably think that this guy is a rat, and you'd be correct. Now Smeech wants to do the same thing every other crime boss wants to do, take over the Undercity and replace Silco. But to do that, he plans to gain control over some territory from Margot, another crime lord. But when he gets there, with his accountant Hinot and his goons, he sees the Grey, which is basically just accumulated factory smog, and it's not safe for business. Naturally, Smeech sends Hinot in instead of going in himself, and Hinot sees, well, I'll call it what it is, a monster in the Grey. Later, we're at Silco's old hideout. Savika is hosting a meeting between the 3 remaining crime bosses, Margot, Smeech, and Cross. Why? She's trying to keep the peace in the Undercity. Piltover was on their asses when they were a united front, but they don't stand a chance against those Hextech Trust Fund babies without mutual understanding. Cross and Margot, unfortunately, are not having it, so Smeech suggests another way to keep the peace, giving up Jinx.
We don't hand over our people.
Savika says they don't portray their own like that, but Smeech says that he's not asking. To make the deal sweeter, he promises to get her a new prosthetic arm. The vibes are super off with this Smeech guy. He talks way too much. After the meeting, Savika tries fixing her old arm in Silco's office when she hears a familiar voice, Jinx. Savika is ready to throw hands, but Jinx isn't here to fight. She's here to reminisce on the absolute mess the Undercity has been since Silco died. Jinx leaves the office on good terms with Savika. The only problem is she's being followed by Smeech and the kid that she saved. Somebody come get their kid, damn. While that's happening, we cut to Victor, who wakes up stuck in his Hextech goo. He powers his way out, but he's not the same Victor that went in. He's almost completely made of some sort of Hextech metal. But when he wakes Jace up, Jace is happy regardless. His friend is alive. Victor, however, is less than amused. Not only did Jace not destroy the Hex Core like he promised, he ended up using it to save Victor. The very same thing that killed Skye is now a part of him. Jace tries to fix things. He says he'll leave the council, that he and Victor can go back to working in the lab like the good old days. But Victor just leaves. He leaves his ambitions, his dreams, and his best friend and just walks away.
Goodbye. Victor, you're my partner.
Back in the Undercity, we see Echo at the Firelight hideout, trying to handle all the refugees. Heimerdinger is actually helping with this, entertaining the children with his bubble machine. But later, they both realize that they have a bigger problem. The tree in the middle of the hideout is dying, and Echo is having a meltdown. But Heimerdinger says that he'll find a cure for it. In fact, he's seen something like this before. I bet you have, you 300-year-old fart. In order to find a cure for the tree, Heimerdinger and Echo make their way into the Piltover lab in full stealth mode. Jace isn't mad though. He's just surprised Heimerdinger felt the need to, sneak into a place that he basically owns. They show Jace the leaf, and Heimerdinger asks about Victor. Jace doesn't answer, but Heimerdinger sees the hex core cocoon he crawled out of and realizes that something bad happened. Speaking of Victor, he's in the Undercity, and is following a very familiar voice. It's Sky, his assistant that was killed by the hex core. Unfortunately, he's being followed himself by some less than friendly looking strangers. Meanwhile, Jinx packs up a gift. What the hell does she have to give to anybody? But we can't question that motive for too long, because the gray suddenly floods the room. She hides, and then sees her worst nightmare. Vi in full Enforcer getup. Jinx is already struggling to breathe, and this nearly kills her. She's crying. She then has an open shot at Vi, but she still can't kill her sister, so she creates a diversion and escapes, which leaves Caitlin pissed. Jinx makes it out crying and screaming, only to run into a clothesline from one of Smeech's goons. Smeech is looking forward to cashing her in for peace in the Undercity, until Jinx lets him in on a secret. She was the one who killed Silco. Smeech is shocked, and that buys her enough time for Savika to save her. And Jinx rewards her instantly. Turns out the gift was a new slot machine arm packed to the brim with claws, explosives, fireworks, and God knows what else. And since it's a slot machine, every attack is completely random. Savika puts it to good use, absolutely destroying Smeech's goons. Jinx gets one of them too, while the little girl from earlier looks on in fascination. She's gonna need a lot of therapy later in life.
Who's a funny-looking rat now?
Savika asks Jinx what she's planning, so Jinx tells her, taking out Vi and finally ending her family. Meanwhile, Victor gets cornered by Huck and his shimmer addict buddies. They're about to chop him down and take what they can to get another fix, but Victor is calm. He says there's no need for senseless violence anymore. And then he cures Huck of his shimmer addiction, removing all the effects and sending him back to the guy he used to be. The other shimmer addicts see this and kneel before him. I guess he's Hexcore Jesus now. Meanwhile, the guy from the end of the first episode is now doing some pretty messed up lab experiments with the wolf from the end of the first episode. I wish I could say more, but that's literally all that they show us. Finally got the name right. Opens with a really cool montage. Caitlin uses the Kierman family key her dad gave her to look at the Kierman secrets. What she sees is that there was a deadly smog being leaked into the Undercity, which Caitlin's mom called the Grey. House Kierman created a ventilation system to deal with this hazard so the people of the Undercity could breathe. Caitlin, however, is not her mom, and decides to weaponize that very same Grey against the people of the Undercity. The task force gets around Zahn, kicking ass while looking for Jinx, but they just can't find her. What they do find is Hinot strapped upside down with his head right over a gray vent. They free him, and that's when they get ambushed by dolls. More specifically, it's dolls that look like the task force. A warning from Jinx. The task force interrogates Hinot, who's in real bad shape from the Grey. He tells them about Jinx's plan. He doesn't know specifics, but something about rerouting vents.
Is headed towards the old tunnels. Something about rerouting the vents.
After that, Caitlin says to cuff him up and throw him in jail. He's still a criminal after all. That's when Vi asks her for a moment alone. Meanwhile, Mbessa gets visited by somebody who has absolutely zero interest in meeting. Amara of the Merchant Guild. But that interest ramps up when she turns out to be a witch from Mbessa's past. The details are foggy at this point, but we know they had a big feud and that she was the one who killed Mbessa's son, Mel's brother. Mbessa and her guard manage to break free from her spell, and Mbessa kills her, but the witch was just possessing the body of Amara, which opens two different problems. She technically just murdered a Merchant Guild member, and the witch is still out there. Meanwhile, Vi has a talk with Caitlin, and says they should cut the other members of the task force loose for their own safety. Vi says her sister is gone, and says everyone in her life has changed. She asks Caitlin to please not do the same. Caitlin says she won't, before they kiss. Oh, finally! The tension was killing me! We then cut to Solo, who's getting some sort of shimmer cocktail session from a cat lady, which is layered in so much sexual tension, I don't even want to touch it. That's when Mbessa barges in and tells her to leave. With her gone, Mbessa chews him out for being shimmer junkie, but Solo's not letting her kill his buzz. They then discuss Caitlyn's progress, and Solo says it's the Kiriman family name that propped up Caitlyn, just like the Medarda name props up Mel. Mbessa does not take kindly to this and smacks him across the room, telling him to keep her family's name out of his mouth. Now that he's sobered up, Mbessa tells him to gather every family with influence. It's time for them to make their announcement. She then also tells him about the guild merchant. Meanwhile, we see Mel meeting the cat lady that was with Solo. Her name is Lest, and she's secretly working for Mel. Lest is scared of Mbessa, but Mel convinces her to spill the beans.
Then what? You take what you need, hang me out to dry?
So she tells Mel they're setting up some big announcement and that she caught the name Amara. She then gives Mel the shimmer cocktail she was using on Solo as incriminating evidence. Meanwhile, Vi and Caitlyn come across a gray vent that Jinx broke and make their way into the smog. Meanwhile, Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger realize the effect on the Firelight Tree is because of wild runes and their overuse of Hextech. Put simply, wild runes are the raw versions of the gems that are used in Hextech. As Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger make their way underground to the Hexgate power grid, Vi and Caitlyn make it to Jinx's hideout. Echo realizes the reason the tree is being affected is because the Hexgate's failsafe is right next to the ventilation ducts and water pipes that the Undercity uses. He's about to get into an argument with Jace when Heimerdinger notices that something is wrong with the failsafe, and the whole room suddenly changes colors. Well, that can't be good. At Jinx's hideout, Vi calls her out. After some back and forth between the siblings, Caitlyn sees Jinx and takes the shot, but it's just a reflection. Meanwhile, the three lovable nerds see a wild rune, or at least that's what I think it is, cause they have no idea. That's when the real Jinx shows up, but Savika attacks Caitlyn before she can shoot her. Unfortunately for Caitlyn and Vi, Jace touches the wild rune. It not only starts distorting reality for the nerds, but makes Caitlyn and Vi's Hextech start going crazy, putting them on the back foot. One badass fight scene and a bunch of explosions later, Vi is about to take Jinx out for good. Until the kid Jinx saved grabs one of her guns and gets in between them, pointing the gun at Vi's face. She's about to pull the trigger, but Caitlyn shoots the gun out of her hand. So the kid just hugs Jinx, who's desperately trying to get her off.
Get off me!
Vi tries to stop Caitlyn from shooting because of the kid, but Caitlyn says Jinx isn't getting away again, and fires. Only for Vi to grab her gun and stop the shot. And that was all the time Savika needed to execute Jinx's master plan. She detonates a bomb that sends Caitlyn and Vi flying out of the room. But that's not all it does. It mixes the gray into the ventilation shafts with different colors and sends it right back where it came from, Piltover. The different colored gray starts popping up everywhere in the city, while giving the kids of Zaun something fun and colorful to see. Now that is a diabolical plan right there. In the aftermath, Caitlyn is super mad at Vi. She wasn't gonna miss and hit the kid. Vi says she's not thinking straight, but Caitlyn says she's just like her sister, before hitting her in the stomach with her gun and leaving. Vi, bruised, battered, and broken inside, cries. After the chaos in Piltover, Mel is about to take her proof against Solo to the council in the other houses, when her assistant just starts tweaking. Turns out the same witch that took over Amara's body is doing it to her, and pretty soon the whole room is covered in red thorns. Before the evil magic consumes Mel, her assistant says one phrase, Black Rose. We then cut to the meeting Solo and Mbessa are holding publicly, and we see her plan in full force. Mbessa pins the death of Amara on some assassins from the Undercity, and says that they can't let the people of Zaun terrorize them any longer. After all, half the council is dead, and even the memorial was turned into a massacre. She says that they need to impose martial law and appoint a general. It'll be somebody who doesn't waver in the face of Zaun's evil, who she's willing to lend her entire army to, and somebody whose house has always stood for progress. Solo gets ready to be crowned as the general, and Mbessa says the general should be Caitlyn Kiriman. What? Yeah, so not only did she flat out betray Solo, but she was the mastermind behind the attack at the memorial too. But Caitlyn doesn't know any of this. She gets caught up in her thirst for revenge and accepts the role. Oh man, the episode is ending, so you know what time it is. It's gotta be Singe time. The episode ends with him feeding his blood to, is that a human-wolf hybrid? There is so much happening in the show, and I'm totally here for it. Episode 4, aptly named Paint the Town Blue, opens with a montage to the track Paint the Town Blue. After this, we see Caitlyn in bed with Maddie? Oh, this is just wrong. We can tell from the dialogue that some time has passed since the end of episode 3 and that Caitlyn is super impressed by Mbessa. Caitlyn thinks she's brilliant.
I'll come to bed soon.
We then cut to Jinx announcing a battle between two monsters. But they're actually just bugs that she and the girl she shaved, Isha, are fighting. Isha's bug wins, so she gets to dye her hair blue just like Jinx. They've gotten super close in the time that's passed. Jinx is like an older sister to Isha now.
I didn't get to do much of this with my older sis.
One problem. She doesn't like the name or the person Jinx anymore. As far as she's concerned, Jinx is dead. After that, we see Ambessa and her bodyguard Rictus looking at a scientist trying to get Hextech to work, only to be vaporized from existence. But why is she not contacting Heimerdinger and Jace? Well, you see, after their interaction with the Wild Rune, Echo, Jace, and Heimerdinger kind of vanished. As a result, they have no one to make the Hextech work, which is a huge problem for Ambessa. The Order, the one who sent that witch after her, have taken Mel hostage, and the only way to beat them is Hextech. Rictus then goes to inspect the people of Zon, who are all being ruled over with an iron fist. He grabs one of them that has blue hair and roughs him up, explaining that all the bad stuff happening in the Undercity is because of Jinx. She's not their friend. This is when color bombs start falling from the sky, and a person in a hood stands over them. The bombs help the Zonites escape, and we see who threw the bombs. Isha. Looks like she's not ready to let Jinx die just yet.
Quite the familiar face these days.
General.
Meanwhile, Ambessa comes to give Caitlin some advice. The appearance of Jinx means that they have a lead. Caitlin isn't so sure. She thinks it was a copycat. Damn, she's good. But Ambessa says even if it was, someone knows where the real one is, and they need to start making arrests until they find her. Caitlin hates this idea. She wonders why peace is always the justification for violence. Ambessa just says she's not strong enough to forgive her enemies. And if Caitlin can, maybe she should and just move on. The choice is hers. We then cut to the pathetic Solo, who's still getting shimmer cocktails from Lest. Lest tries to get some info on Mel from him, but he doesn't know where she is. She's been missing for months. Solo's shimmer addiction has also gotten really bad, so she tells him about a miracle worker in the Undercity, somebody who can cure all shimmer addicts. I think we're about to run into good old Victor pretty soon. Speaking of the Undercity, Savika shows up and asks Jinx about the stunt that she pulled, but Jinx has absolutely no clue what she's talking about. But Savika says even if it was a copycat, it has everyone in Zon really riled up. She's going to a rally tonight, and she wants Jinx to come there as a symbol. Silco wanted to unite Zon, and Jinx actually has a chance to do this. But Jinx is done with that life, she just refuses. But she knows Savika is right, and goes to Silco's office to try and figure out what to do. On one hand, she does want to help Zon and be their hero, if you can even call her that. On the other hand, she's got a good thing going with Isha. She doesn't want to mess it up. So she does what I always do when faced with a hard decision: cry. As Caitlin pays respects to her mother's memorial, Rictus beats the living hell out of a Jinxer to get some info on her location. He ends up getting the location of the rally out of him, Vander's statue. At the statue with Singed present, Savika tries to rally everyone to come together and set their differences aside. And they're ready to do it, but not under Savika. They want to see Jinx. While she doesn't show up, Isha pops a blue flare, and it's enough to make everybody raise their fists. Seeing this, Savika smiles and raises her fist as well, only to have it impaled by Rictus's spear. He's there with the enforcers, and they're taking everybody in. They try fighting back, but no one stands a chance. Isha tries hitting Victus, which is like a coughing baby fighting a hydrogen bomb. After they've gotten everybody else, the enforcers circle Singed, who cuts open his hand and surrenders. But as his blood drops to the floor, the human-wolf hybrid he was working on wakes up. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. Back at her home, Jinx returns to find Isha gone. That's when a one-armed Savika shows up and tells her what happened, which makes Jinx tweak out of her mind. She's gonna get Isha back. Speaking of Isha, she's holding on to creepy Wolfman scared out of her mind. But he tells her not to worry. They won't be in prison for long before catching a glimpse of the wolf monster chasing its master's blood.
What's wrong with my pants?
You look like a half-eaten circus tent.
Jinx and Savika take out an enforcer, and Jinx puts on their clothes as a disguise, sneaking herself and Savika into the prison completely undetected. They do come face to face with Ambessa, and Jinx thinks about going for the kill, but decides against it. Now is not the right time. As the wolf monster makes its way inside the prison, Jinx loads up her Hextech gun. It's about to get real. Savika and Jinx take out the guards and free all the prisoners, who all touch Jinx as they go. The people of Zon now see her as their savior. While this is happening, Ambessa is thinking about that random enforcer she just saw. She could swear she saw the enforcer have blue hair. Unfortunately, she has bigger problems than this, because the wolf monster just arrived in an elevator and it attacks her. Meanwhile, Jinx and Savika finally find Isha, who just hugs Jinx. And the way Jinx cries and hugs her back, I think she might actually be changing for the better. Singed looks at them. But when the ceiling starts to shake, he locks himself back into his cell. Something bad is coming. And that something is the wolf monster, which breaks in and absolutely demolishes all the enforcers. Seeing the monstrosity in front of them, Jinx tells Savika to take Isha and make a run for it. So Savika does as she's told and goes outside to see the absolute bloodbath that the wolf monster left in its wake. As Jinx fights the monster, she does her best to get the upper hand. But he's too big, too fast, and too strong. Even her Hexgates gun doesn't really affect him. She tries blowing up a grenade in his face, but he grabs her arm, and the wolf monster is about to finish her off. But this is when it notices the drawings on the bomb. It suddenly starts seeing flashes of a past, and the red glow in his eyes vanishes. With the episode ending, he says one word, powder? Oh my god, is that Vander? Powder. Episode 5, aka Blisters and Bedrock, opens with us finally getting to see what Violet has been up to this whole time that has passed, and she dyed her hair black and is now an underground boxer. Yeah, that pretty much checks out. Her cycle is simple. She boxes and wins, she gets drunk and dances, she goes home and sleeps, and then she repeats. Unfortunately, the drinking and the fighting combined with the emotional damage of losing Caitlin is really messing with her. Her enforcer drinking buddy Loris hangs around to make sure she gets home okay and doesn't get into too much trouble, but she ends up losing a fight and it sends her on a spiral. When she wakes up, she sees Jinx. She immediately grabs her throat, going in for the kill, but Jinx isn't fighting back. She tells Vi that Vander is back. Vi calls bullshit and almost strangles her to death, but Jinx's tears convince her, so she lets go. Talk about an opening sequence, oh my god. We then cut to the prison, where we see Mbessa survived, but she knows that monster is a big problem. Caitlin walks through the prison, taking in the horrors of the massacre. They both then interrogate Singed. After all, the beast did come after him, but he doesn't tell them anything, so they throw him in the cells below the prison where he'll rot for eternity. Speaking of rotting away, we finally see Mel. Thank God she's alive. Unfortunately, she's in some sort of prison that the Order threw her in. Their real name is Black Rose, and Mel remembers how she was abducted. She then hears the voice of another person in the room with her, another prisoner, and when he steps into the light, she sees that it's her brother, Kino, the one Mel and her family thought was dead. He recognizes her too, and the siblings share a heartfelt hug.
That child inherited is of terrible interest to our captors.
Speaking of family reunions, Vi follows Jinx and Isha into some sort of underground tunnel. That's where Jinx says she lost Vander. Vi says it's just one of her fantasies, but Jinx says it's the truth, and they get into an argument. Jinx says she's the hero who broke half of Zahn out of prison, while Vi teamed up with the same people that killed their parents and turned into a degenerate after all. This squabble turns into a fight, because these two can't have a conversation without throwing hands. Isha tries to help Jinx, but Vi smacks her aside, which makes both sisters stop fighting. Jinx goes and helps Isha up, and they keep moving. Vi asks why Jinx asked her to come, and Jinx says it's like a do-over. After all, Vander is Vi's dad too. Meanwhile, Mbessa goes and visits Singed. She says she fought wars all over the world, but she's never seen something so savage as the monster that he created. She says she'll free him and even appoint him as a trusted advisor, but she demands two things: absolute loyalty and that he create the same kind of weapons for her. Singed then explains that what he created wasn't a monster. It was a man with a great desire to live. We then cut to Mel and Kino. Mel figures out that the drawings on the war are some sort of puzzle, and she just needs to solve it. That's when her brother drops a bombshell. Mbessa had an affair back in the day, and a child was born. Whatever that child inherited is what Black Rose is after. Mel is that child. Wow, that is some top-class exposition right there. That's awesome. Anyway, we then see Singed hard at work cooking up a way to locate Vander. Mbessa is standing guard when Caitlin shows up and greets them. She then says she's been doing some digging and found out that there used to be an Academy alchemist who was banished, without any mention of his crime. She says it must have been the same man who created Shimmer, and she knows who that man is. It's Singed. His real name is Dr. Revek. Caitlin pulls her gun on him, asking why he'd do such monstrous things, so he opens a secret passage in his lab and shows them why, so he can find a way to cure his daughter and save her life.
Precisely what are you trying to cure?
What is he trying to cure? Death itself. Back with Mel, she says she's going to solve the puzzle and free herself and her brother, but there's just one problem: she's missing something. And that something is that the Kino next to her isn't actually her brother. It's a Black Rose imposter. She slams his face into the wall, and he begins changing shapes until it takes the shape of Mel herself, and pulls her in. Now chained up in some red dimension, a voice says it thought Kino might have been the child, until Mbessa led them to Mel, who the voice calls sister. That's when a golden light starts emerging from her, and Mel explodes. What? We cut back to the girls who are looking for Vander. They come across an abandoned miner's shaft and see Vander's clothes. He used to work here. They also find a note Vander wrote for Silco but never got to give him. In it, Vander apologizes for what he did to Silco, offering peace. Reading it, Jinx realizes everything could have been different if Silco had seen it in time. They continue moving into the tunnel where they hear Vander charging towards them. Jinx tells Violet to calm down, but it's kinda hard to do when there's a 500-pound monster charging at you. So Vi jumps in and punches him with her hex gauntlets. She gets into a fight with him, but he's too strong and pins her against the wall. As he charges, Jinx begs Violet to stop fighting and trust Vander. So Vi puts her gauntlets down and screams Vander's name as he jumps at her. We then see a Vander flashback from before everything went to crap. He's in his bar with a younger Silco and a woman named Felicia, Violet and Powder's mother. They were all three friends who helped bring the Zonite revolution and who are all working together to make sure it's a peaceful place. The three are sharing a drink when Felicia shares the fact that she's pregnant, so Vander swaps her drink out for juice. She entrusts taking care of Zon to Silco and Vander. She's gonna be busy being a mom. This is when Vander suggests a name for her soon-to-be-born child, Violet. Back in the present, Jinx lights a lighter to see what's happening in the dark and sees Vander and Violet hugging. Violet asks Jinx what she's waiting for. Vander's her father too. Jinx starts crying and joins in. It may be a messy family reunion, but if you ask me, it's perfect.
He's your dad too.
After that emotional roller coaster, we cut to the Hexgate failsafe, where we see somebody remove the hex core batteries. When they do this, something pops out of the wild rune. Or rather, somebody. Jace. He's got a beard now. You can see he's been there for a while. He asks who it is, and we see it's Solo. Jace asks him how he can walk, and he says who else could fix a broken creature. His body is then taken over by Victor. Victor says he's happy to see Jace alive and asks him to come and talk in person. They have so much to discuss. Jace asks if Victor has given Hextech to the people, and he says yes, just like they always planned to. But Jace says Hextech isn't a miracle, it's actually a curse. Victor says there's something different about Jace, and he realizes what it is. Jace has been touched by the Arcane too. Victor then leaves Solo's body, who starts taking the batteries away. Jace says he can't let Solo leave, and Solo says he's sorry Jace feels that way. Jace says he's sorry too, and proceeds to pounce Solo with his Hextech hammer, which has been altered by the wild rune. Looks like we have best friends on opposite sides. It's Vander and Silco all over again. The message hidden within the pattern kicks off with Victor watching Jace through Solo's dying eyes, and we see him floating through what I can only really call hex space. And he's not alone. Sky is there with him. Victor says Jace isn't himself. The wild rune has changed him and is controlling him. We then cut to Caitlin training with Mbessa, and it is intense. That's when Singed, aka Dr. Revek, walks in and says he's tracked Vander down. He's in the Undercity. Speaking of Vander, we see Jinx, Vi, and Isha taking him to a new place in Zon, the place where Victor is healing everybody. It's a place of peace. They make it to Victor, who puts his hand on Vander's head and sees that his mind is entangled with the beast. Victor says that he'll try to fix Vander.
He is worth the risk.
But under one condition. They must restrain him at night. He's got a point. Vander is straight up dangerous. Vi asks Jinx what they should do, and Jinx is surprised Vi wants her opinion. They agree, and Victor begins his treatment of Vander. Over many days, he and Sky make their way through Vander's psyche, until they finally reach his consciousness. Inside, they see his memories of the good times with Silco and Felicia, as well as Vi and Jinx growing up with her. I hate to keep bringing it up, but just look at the animation, it's amazing! Vi and Jinx, meanwhile, are at their mother's grave, and Vi says maybe they should stay in this place, together, which shocks Jinx. Unfortunately, that happiness looks like it'll be short-lived because Caitlin and Mbessa show up with a small army demanding to see Victor. But Dr. Revek says he should go in peacefully first. He believes the Herald that heals everybody is a former student of his. As Sky and Victor are putting Vander's consciousness back together, Revek walks in and says he's amazed by Victor. He's become the peak of Hextech. But Revek says that with every healing, Victor is slowly losing his power. When it runs out, he will die. Revek suggests that Victor should use Vander. His endless healing ability would cure Victor, but he refuses. Victor believes in fate, and Vander isn't some specimen to be experimented on. He is a man.
I will not sacrifice his humanity for your cause.
He asks Revek to leave, but he's read his mind already and knows an attack is coming. As Revek leaves Victor's tent, Vi sees and recognizes him. So in classic Vi fashion, she starts following him. This leads to her being jumped by Caitlin, who didn't recognize her because of the black hair. After a bit of back and forth between them, we cut to Revek and Mbessa. Revek says if Victor cures Vander, he'll be useless to Mbessa. Not to worry though, he thinks he can make a serum that will make Vander incurable. These two are despicable. I hate them. That's when Caitlin walks in. She's taken Vi prisoner. She leaves Vi with Mbessa and heads out with Revek to give Vander the serum. We then cut to Jinx, who is waiting for Isha to steal her gun. When she comes back with it, Jinx says that since Isha has been in her life, it's like she's put on glasses. Before Isha, she was pointlessly seeking violence and revenge. But since they've met, Isha's reminded her what it means to be alive. That's when she points her gun inside Vander's tent, and we see Caitlin and Revek there. Ready to give Vander the serum, we get a quick shot of Jace making his way to the Herald settlement, before going back to Vi and Mbessa. Mbessa praises Vi, saying that she's resilient, and that Caitlyn falling for her meant that she could fill in the void with an agent of her own.
Your absence provided a vacuum I was able to fill.
Wait, Maddie is Mbessa's spy? She's about to end Vi until we realize it was all a plot by the good guys. We then see what actually happened. When Caitlyn met Vi, she told her about Mbessa's plan and gave her the key for the handcuffs. Vi then told Jinx about the plan so she could stop Revok if Caitlyn couldn't, but the plan goes smoothly. Vi incapacitates Mbessa, and Caitlyn knocks out Revok. I'm sure Jinx hated working with Caitlyn, but hey, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Meanwhile, Jace makes his way to Victor, but he is not right in the head. He keeps seeing visions, which makes him go violent. Back in Vander's tent, Caitlyn gets attacked by Rictus, who followed her there. He's about to choke her to death until Jinx falls in and saves her. Jinx begins taking him on, and she's doing pretty well, until he grabs a hold of her hair. Just when he's gonna end her, Vander steps in and tells him to stay away from his daughter. He smacks Rictus out of the tent with one hit, taking him down. Jinx goes and hugs Vander, and Vi shows up too, as Caitlyn watches on. But the family reunion is cut short, because Jace aims his hammer at his best friend, the man he admired so much, the man he was going to save Zahn with, and fires. He blasts a hole right through Victor, whose motionless body falls to the ground. Outside, everyone treated by Victor starts falling to the ground, the effects of his healing immediately going away. Vi, Caitlyn, Isha, and Jinx run outside to see the horrific scene before Vander's tent goes red. With Victor's healing powers gone, the full potential of the beast is unleashed, and he explodes out of the tent, now a lava wolf monster. Rictus tries making his way to his spear, but Vander picks him up and tears him apart, and Mbessa was there to see the whole thing. As the fight begins, Caitlyn, Vi, and Jinx start throwing punches and bullets, but without her gauntlets, Vi is nerfed, and she gets cut. Jinx tries to calm Vander down, but he smacks her away, leaving her injured too. Seeing this, Isha realizes what she has to do. She runs into the chaos and grabs Jinx's gun. As she makes her way towards Vander, she remembers all the good times she had with Jinx. And with a smile on her face, she runs over to Vander and stuffs 3 bullets inside her gun. Jinx tries to run after her, but Vi stops her. As her final act, Isha makes a finger gun at Jinx, the same way Jinx did when they first met, before pointing the gun at Vander and firing. The episode ends in a massive explosion, and there is no way that Isha survived that. That was crazy. The episode, Pretend Like It's the First Time, starts with Echo, and he's pulling out a book from a shelf, till he realizes who he is and also that he has no idea where he is. That's when Jinx spooks him, only this isn't really Jinx. It's a version of Powder that grew up the right way. Echo doesn't know this, so he tries attacking her and asks her to stay away. He turns around to get out, but that's when the door opens and Echo hears a familiar voice. It's Benzo, his mentor. Echo just drops the stuff from Benzo's hands and hugs him, shedding a tear. What is going on? As Echo heads to the bar with Powder and Benzo, he sees Vander there, alive and well. He also meets Milo and Clagger. Everyone he used to love is alive and living a happy life, and Echo is beginning to question his own sanity. That's when he hears another familiar voice. Heimerdinger sits down next to him. This sends Echo over the edge, and he literally has to throw up. Heimerdinger follows him out and says he's been waiting for Echo to show up. They're in a parallel dimension with some time travel mixed in.
Man, I thought I was going crazy.
Echo asks how long Heimerdingers had waited for him, so he tells him it's been about 3 years. Also, Jace didn't end up here. The Wild Rune was reacting differently to him. He asks Heimerdinger if they have a way of going back, and Heimerdinger says no. In this dimension, Hextech was never created. Heimerdinger says it's not that bad. Echo will get used to it. Echo is about to have a meltdown, but that's when Powder walks in and asks Echo if he wants to go see Vi. This is way too trippy. We then see what Jace went through that led him to take his best friend's life. He wakes up and sees he's in some dystopian hell. He then sees somebody in the fog. It's the magician who saved him as a kid. He chases after him only to find a horrific sight. Piltover, completely destroyed. Meanwhile, Echo goes to see Vi, who's dead. Echo asks how this happened, but Powder says he should already know. He's the one who gave him the job that made her bite the dust. That's when he realizes Hextech isn't here because the job went poorly. But despite this, Echo isn't giving this version of Powder any slack, and is really rude to her. He leaves, but as he walks through a prosperous zone, where everyone is alive and living a happy life, he begins to question himself. This is where we get contrasting views. Echo is walking through a prosperous zone, while Jace walks through a destroyed Piltover, and both of them are uneasy with what they've come across. Echo makes it to the site where the job went wrong and collects the Hex Gem shards in the wall. Meanwhile, Jace sees dead people turned into these metallic statues, but they're not really dead. They come to life and start chasing Jace. He panics and runs, falls into a hole, and his own hammer smacks him in the head. completely knocking him out. Yikes. While Echo convinces Heimerdinger to help him recreate Hextech so they can get back home, Jace wakes up, and he's in bad shape. His leg is really injured, and he can barely move. He tries crawling out of the hole, but he just can't, so he puts on survival mode. He lights a fire and begins catching whatever kind of creatures he can find for food. The entire time, he's scribbling on the wall, trying to figure out how the hell he got here and how he can get back. After God knows how long, his leg is finally better, though his hammer is totally wrecked. He begins climbing his way out of the hole. Slowly but surely, he makes his way up until he reaches the top and passes out. While this is happening, Echo takes Powder to a mural he's painted of the version of Vi he knew, and Powder loves it. He apologizes before explaining that he needs her help on something that he's doing. We get a quick shot of Jace making his way through a desolate world before going back to Echo. With Heimerdinger and Powder, he works on the Hex shards until they finally do it. They create a wild rune. It's super small though, and when Echo uses it, he realizes he can only go as much as 4 seconds back in time. Any more would lead to destruction.
The limit is 4 seconds.
Are you certain, my boy? What were the indicators?
It needs more work, but Heimerdinger tells him to go to this party that Powder and the others are attending. As he puts it, what's the point of time travel if you can't enjoy the time that you have? Jace continues making his way through his hell, while Echo goes to this party. There, he tells Benzo how much he appreciates him, and the two share a warm hug. That's when Silco shows up, and Echo is shocked. Vander tried to kill him. But Silco says the best thing a man can do is forgive, and Echo smiles. This really is a perfect world. This is when Powder arrives, all dressed up, and the two dance. Afterwards, Echo is clearly conflicted about leaving this place, and who can blame him? It's perfect. Powder says when you leap forward, you have to leave some things behind, but Echo says he'll never forget this, and they kiss. It's a beautiful moment, in the saddest way possible. As Jace finally makes it to the Magician, Echo sees that Heimerdinger has the wild rune ready to send him back. Meanwhile, Jace sees the version of himself that dies in this universe holding his hammer and realizes all this happened because of Hextech. He asks the Magician why he ever gave him a Hex gem if this is how the world was going to turn out. As Heimerdinger turns the machine on, Jace asks the Magician to send him back. He'll fix everything. As the Magician sends Jace back, the machine starts malfunctioning, and Heimerdinger sacrifices himself to make sure Echo can make it back. Powder arrives in time to see Echo's spirit leave before her own Echo wakes up and asks what happened. A lot has happened, buddy. A lot. Episode 8. Killing is a Cycle opens back with Mel after her golden explosion, and she's visibly different, with these kind of cool patterns covering her body. She's then greeted by the mastermind behind Black Rose, the illusionary mage LeBlanc, who can shift her shape. LeBlanc tells Mel that she's a mage, and her powers are finally awakened. The woman tells Mel that she's an empath. That means she can sense others' magic and bend it to her will. The twist here is that she doesn't want to harm Mel. On the contrary, she wants to recruit her. LeBlanc's goal is simple. Ambessa's thirst for a legacy is going to destroy the world, and she needs to be taken out. Mel is against it at first. She may be a savage, but Ambessa is her mother. But LeBlanc says it's either that or the destruction of the world. She then gives Mel a necklace, her gift as a member of this new family. And with that, Mel makes her way back to Piltover. Speaking of Ambessa, she's busy burying Rictus with her Noxian soldiers, and she's pissed. She says one doesn't mourn a warrior, they avenge them. Meanwhile, we see Revik up to his usual evil shenanigans. This time he's using the remains of Vander to revive Victor. His plan actually works, and Victor speaks to them through the bodies of his followers. He says this is the Great Evolution, but it doesn't look like he can complete it. He needs the anomaly beneath the Hexgates for that, and he doesn't have the power to stop Jace. What's more, he's not sure he wants to go through with it. Ambessa says that she will get him to the anomaly if he promises to evolve all of her soldiers, and Victor says he'll evolve anybody who's willing.
I will evolve all those willing.
Before he starts transforming one of his followers, as Ambessa and Revik watch in shock. Meanwhile, Vi is having nightmares about the whole Vander situation and wakes up to Loris at her bedside. She asks him about the others, so Loris tells her. Caitlin arrested Jinx, so Vi storms into Caitlin, who's with Maddie. See, the thing is, neither Caitlin nor Vi knows she's a spy. Ambessa didn't state it outright. Vi is super mad at Caitlin for arresting Jinx, but Caitlin says she didn't even have a choice. As soon as Vi was safe, Jinx surrendered herself. Vi says that she's changed, but Caitlin says everyone has to pay for their crimes, which makes Vi mad. After all, who decides who gets a second chance? Caitlin then goes to see Jinx, and gives her a chance to accept her crimes and atone for her sins. But Jinx says there's no such thing as happy endings. There's no retribution for her. We then shift to Jace, who makes it back to the council headquarters, but he doesn't get a lot of time to reminisce because Mel shows up. Seeing him, Mel knows he's been through something, but Jace says it doesn't really matter. More importantly, he realizes the reason he survived Jinx's attack on the HQ was because of her powers, and demands to know why she only saved them. Mel begins explaining it wasn't intentional, but that's when Jace starts seeing visions of the alternate universe that he was in, and he fires his hammer, which misses Victor's follower. And wouldn't you know it, he looks suspiciously like the metallic people Jace saw in the parallel dimension.
We must talk.
Mel attacks him, but the metal man just pushes her aside. Jace begs him to stay away from the Hexgates, but Victor says the Great Evolution is inevitable, and he wants to do it as partners. But Jace says his partner died in this room, and the fight begins. Victor's power is terrifying, and he pins Jace down, ready to end him with his own hammer, until Mel unleashes her entire power, restraining him. This gives Jace the time to fire his hammer, taking the metal man out. With that, Victor asks Revek to go through with the process. He's ready for war. And if just one of those metal men was a problem, imagine what a whole army of Mbessa's men in metal form will be like. While this is happening, Jinx is in her cell, depressed because she lost Isha. That's when she sees a vision of Silco, who tells her killing is a cycle that started long before Vander and him, and will continue long after Jinx and Vi are gone. The only way to break the cycle is for her to walk away. Vi then walks in with the keys to her cell. She stole them. She says Jinx could change her image just like she did for Zahn, if she works to do some good. Jinx agrees, and Vi opens the cell and hugs her. But it's a trick. She punches Vi and locks her in the cell, saying Vi doesn't have to worry about her anymore. Vi deserves to be with Caitlyn. Vi asks her what she's doing, and Jinx says she's going to break the cycle, and leaves her there. Meanwhile, Mel and Jace are having a conversation. Jace apologizes. He's been an ass to her, not realizing that she's hurting too. Mel says she realizes now that her whole life was based on a lie, she's just been a passenger. But Jace says if he's sure of one thing, it's that Mel can't be controlled by anybody. She's no passenger. The scene then shifts to the Council HQ, where people from both Piltover and Zahn are present. Jace called them there, so he could tell them about the war that's coming their way. He shows them the Metal Man and says there are hundreds of them coming from both Zahn and Piltover. He begs them to join him in the effort to protect their land, but says if they choose to run, then they need to get as far away as possible. Some people stay, some of them like Savika go, and some come back after leaving at first. It's a truly beautiful scene. The people of Topside and the Undercity coming together against a common enemy as Jace waits at the Hexgate core. While this is happening, Vi is sitting in Jinx's cell mad at herself until Caitlyn shows up and tells her she knew Vi was going to do this. In fact, she planned it. What follows is, well, some hot romance. Caitlyn tries saying she's seeing somebody, but Vi says that she doesn't care, and Caitlyn clearly doesn't give a shit either. Anyway, we will leave the lovers alone. We then cut to Mel, who goes to talk to Mbessa. Mbessa's overjoyed that she's alive, but then happiness is gone when she realizes Mel knows about Black Rose. Mbessa tries saying that they're lying, but Mel says the only liar here is her mother, and demands to know the truth about why she let Kino die. Furious, Mbessa slaps her. She says she hopes Mel never has to face the pain of having to sacrifice one child to save another. Mel says Piltover has nothing to do with her feud, that if she leaves for Noxia, Mel will join her. But Mbessa refuses. Black Rose defies the very basis of Noxian civilization, that they're all equal on the battlefield. She says that she's going to shape her own destiny, and that she's found a way to do it. She takes Mel to Victor, and shows her the Metal Man army that he's created. They're called Primordians, and they're essentially immortal. We then see how they were made. Revek used Vander, who survived Isha's attack, to bring Victor back to full power. Victor then created the army before undergoing some sort of evolution himself. Oh man, this is so bad. The very last episode, The Dirt Under Your Nails, opens with Jinx burning down Silco's hideout before she blows herself up with a hex grenade, until Echo reverses the effects with his 4-second time machine. Jinx is adamant on ending her life, so it takes a bit of convincing from Echo, but after a bunch of resets, he calms her down enough to hear him out. Back with Jace and the others, and he tells them the plan. It's simple. Buy him enough time to shut down the Hexgates. Jace says they're destined to lose this fight. He saw as much in the other world, but Caitlyn says they're not going to lose, and we immediately jump into battle, and the Enforcers are doing everything they can to stop them. It's not looking good though. Mbessa is leading from the front lines, taking out 5 Enforcers at a time. Caitlyn aims her hack sniper from afar and takes the shot, but Mbessa's got a shield. And just when you think things couldn't get any worse, a Noxian ship opens and a giant monster comes out, dragging Victor's cocoon with it. Seeing this, Caitlyn and Maddie retreat. Vi and the Enforcers try to keep the Noxians at bay, but they're just too strong, and they break through the barricade, and Loris gets a couple of arrows in the neck, taking him out. Meanwhile, Caitlyn, Maddie, and some Enforcers flank Victor's cocoon to ambush him. After throwing some poison gas, they start shooting their way in. They plant the bomb on Victor's cocoon, but nothing happens. It was a dud. That's when Caitlyn is attacked from behind. When she comes to her senses, she sees her squad is captured, and Mbessa is slowly making her way towards them. She turns around to see who's pointing the gun at her, and the person removes their mask to show her. It's Maddie. The betrayal finally happened.
I did appreciate your warmth.
But before she can take the shot, Caitlin snatches away her gun, only to be stabbed by Mbessa. On her knees now, Maddie shoots Caitlin, but the bullet ends up in her head instead. That's because Mel deflected it with her magic as she comes face to face with her mother. She asks her to spare their lives, but Mbessa just laughs and asks her guards to get ready. That's when they hear loud music playing and we see a familiar figure in a colored hood. It's Jinx, and she's not alone. In fact, she brought the damn cavalry, and a bunch of people from Zon, Savika included, join the fight. Now with new life, the good guys start pushing the Noxians back. With some help from Vi, one of them manages to launch a container at Victor's cocoon, blowing it open. The dust clears and they look inside only to see that it's empty. Where the hell is Victor? Well, that question is answered shortly after. He's made it to the Hexgates power grid and he's transformed into something godlike. He says that despite everything that's happened, he's happy to see Jace. Jace begs him to stop, but there's no stopping. We then see the Primordians join the fight, paralyzing Savika and the others with a single touch. Mel asks Mbessa to look at the mess her ambition has made and says that she's no Medarda. Mbessa is about to clap back, but Caitlin smacks her in the face. She tells her to shut up and fight. So she does, and the 2v1 is on. Caitlin and Mel versus Mbessa. Meanwhile, Vi is looking at the mess unfolding when she sees something truly horrifying. A Primordian buffed Vander. She's about to get torn to shreds in her shock, but Jinx unloads on Vander with her Gatling gun, so Vander jumps on her airship and goes after her. Echo takes Vi to the ship where she unloads one on Vander. While this is happening, Mel and Caitlin are struggling against Mbessa. Vi and the others are trying to handle Vander and they crash the airship into the tower. Back with Jace. He's unplugging all the batteries to shut down the Hexgates, telling Victor what he's doing is wrong. People deserve to choose their own destiny. But Victor says that choice is a lie people tell themselves as he makes all the batteries go back inside, turning the Hexgate back on. We cut to Mbessa, who's still kicking Mel and Caitlin's asses. Caitlin then realizes the green beads on her arm are the source of her protection, so she rips them off. Before Mbessa can react, Mel grabs her necklace, releasing LeBlanc and Black Rose. LeBlanc opens her pocket dimension and grabs Mbessa, starting to suck the life out of her. But Mel invades her dimension. LeBlanc tries stopping her, but it's no use. Mel has surpassed her power. Mel sends LeBlanc away and grabs Mbessa as she falls to the ground. In her dying breaths, Mbessa smiles at Mel. In spite of everything that's happened, she's proud of her daughter. As Mel holds her mother's corpse in her hands, the Noxian soldiers salute their fallen leader and her successor. Vi wakes up in the rubble and finds Jinx. She says Jinx shouldn't have come back, but Jinx says she's always with Vi, whether she likes it or not. They then see Vander staring at them and the fight begins. Meanwhile, Jace begs Victor to stop this insanity one last time, but it's no use. Victor grabs the wild rune and begins floating to the top of the tower, taking Jace with him. Victor's powers remove the gravity in the area, making Jinx, Vi, and Vander start floating in the fight. The siblings are trying their hardest to stop him, but he's just too fast and too strong. In the middle of their fight, they see Jace and Victor fly to the top. Jace narrowly avoids Victor's lasers, but he can't stop him. At the top, Victor unleashes the power of the Wild Rune, which takes control of everybody, starting their transformation into primordials. Jinx manages to dodge it at first, but Vander grabs her, so both she and Vi get taken control of too. Oh no. But there is somebody who hasn't been controlled. Echo, who just woke up. Back at the top, Victor grabs Jace's head, taking control of him too. Jace sees how Victor sees the world now, and says Victor always wanted to cure things he thought were imperfect, like his leg and his disease. But Jace says Victor was never broken. Those things made him who he is. He says there's beauty in imperfection. Back in the real world, Echo's flying towards him. The Primordians try stopping him, but he slashes and dodges his way through them, making his way to Victor, only for one of them to smack him in the face. But remember that 4-second time machine he has? Well, he used it to reset before the hit and dodges under it. Unfortunately, he ends up getting caught, and the 4-second reset isn't enough to take him out of the Primordian's hands. So he cranks the reset timer way beyond the safe limit and breaks free. This makes the machine unstable, so he battles his way to Victor and throws it at his face. Seeing the device, Victor says its existence should be impossible. Before, boom. In the real world, time stops because of the explosion. Victor is hurt because of the explosion, which means Jace is free. He asks Victor to help him fix this, and Victor asks Jace why he still believes in him. So Jace hugs Victor and shows him the parallel dimension that he went to. Besides the death and destruction, he also shows him what even we haven't seen, the identity of the mage. It was the Victor of that universe. He was the mage from Jace's childhood, who saved him and his mom and gave him the Hex Gem. That version of Victor told Jace that across all timelines and all realities, Jace is the only one that could save him. Seeing this, Victor has a change of heart and says that he's going to fix everything. But Jace puts the gem Victor's alternate version gave him as a kid and says they'll do it together. With that, the two partners, the two friends, sacrifice their lives, saving everybody and vanishing into thin air. It's over. The primordials are gone. Everyone else falls down back to normal. Well, not everybody. Vi wakes up on a ledge that's falling over. Jinx tells her to make the jump to safety, but she sees Vander and touches his face, shedding a tear. But Vander gets up and attacks Vi. He's about to crush her until Jinx bumps him, sending herself and Vander over the edge. Vi grabs Jinx's hand, and Vander's grabbing her leg. Vi tries to save her, but Jinx says she'll always be with her.
Always with you, sis.
Before she takes the hex gem out of her gauntlet, the gauntlet opens as Jinx falls with her father, hugging him before they both go out in an explosion. Vi cries in frustration, and there's no noise to cover it up. The war is over. Wow. After this, Caitlin narrates over the aftermath of the war. There were a lot of casualties, and the survivors pay their respects to the courageous fallen. We get a shot of Echo, who is mourning Jinx in his memory of Powder. Meanwhile, we see Council HQ, where Savika gets a seat at the table. Some of the council doesn't like it, but it means Zahn is finally being represented equally. We see Mel, who's taken over for Ambessa as the leader of Noxia. And we finally see Caitlin, going through the Kiraman archives. She then hears a voice humming a song. It's Vi. She sits down, putting her head on Vi's shoulder, and asks if she's still here for the problems that are going to come after this. Vi smiles and says that she's the dirt under her nails. Caitlin will never get rid of her. And with that, the credits roll one last time. And that was our recap of Arcane. Wow. Season 2 was one hell of a ride, with insane character arcs, twists we never saw coming, and an ending that would leave even the most heartless person in tears. Personally, Victor was one of my favorite characters. But I really want to know who's your favorite. Let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. See ya.